Good evening and welcome to Year One TV. It's coverage of the British Sim Racers Touring Cars. We had the first round last week at Donington Park National. We are here at Brands Hatch Indy for the second meeting. I'm Dan Blake. Alongside me for today's meeting, as per last week, is Reese Saunders. Reese, how are you this evening?
Good evening, everyone. I'm very well, thank you, Dan. Looking forward to another great evening's worth of racing. Hopefully the TCRs can live up to the excitement we had on Tuesday night round here in the MX-5s. But yeah, thrilled, excited to be here. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Looking forward to some fantastic racing. What we saw in the races last week, though, was pretty much a SimTech domination. They took 3 out of the first 4 victories of the season, and it's their drivers who topped the championship. We got 3 of those in the top 4, and it'd be interesting to see if that carries over. Also worth noting as well, if you remember from last week, that we won't be seeing our championship leader Joe Winter this week. He is away on work commitments, but we do have 6 new drivers who were not here last week, which are Andy McEwen, we have Fiona Siddons, Reese Watt, we have Chris Dixon, and also we have Oliver and Slocum. So that is 6 new drivers, which will shake up some of them will shake up the AM division. A lot more AMs this week than we had last week, and more Audis as well. We have so there's now 3 Audis in the AM division, which is quite strange considering that the rest of the field is pretty heavily stacked with those Hyundai Elantras.
Yes, it's a bit of a change. I love it. It's a bit of diversity. I'm just waiting for somebody to turn up in a Honda, and then we will have the full complement of cars on the grid. But yeah, no, variety is the spice of life, and I'm looking forward to see how the Audis get on. I know the front-running cars do run through the Elantra, but I think the Audi can be competitive. We saw it fighting for edge of the top side, especially in Shershire Fitzpatrick's hands last week.
Yeah, that Hyundai Veloster of chassis very quick, and I believe we're going to have a little look back at the results from last week as well, just to recap for those of you who weren't able to join us. Here is the race run result coming up very shortly. It's Paul Cook who took victory with Joe Winter second. Martin Shirley, the Pro-Am driver, took the overall pole position and finished there. We had James Neve in 4th. Then to say Chassis Fitzpatrick in 5th. Luke Pullen finished on the road 6th, but was excluded. We'll come to that, though, at the end. We do have some judicials that were done, so we'll come to those later on. Ian Manners was 7th, Craig McDonald 8th, and Alistair Hatcher won the AM class and was 9th, and Wayne Douglas in 10th place. That's how race 1 was for the top 10. So we're about to shortly...
results.
Yep, race 2, I believe. Wait for Graham Sessford doing the hard beaver in a way as he always does every week. So thank you very much for that, Graham. And as you see, it is Joe Winter who took the victory in race 2. Luke Pullen was 2nd, James Neague was 3rd. So year 1 got a bit more into it in race 2. Martin Shirley was the Pro-Am winner in 4th. Ian Manners was 5th, with Fitzpatrick 6th, Douglas 7th, Cook 8th, Lee Holmes in 9th place after having a DNF in the first race, and Alistair Hatcher took the AM win in 10th place. And that was how the second race ended at Donington. We saw some great racing on the Donington National Circuit, and it really was, as I say, it was a very good evening of racing. We're expecting to see the same here at Brands Hatch. Of course, the circuit, the shortest of the season by 0.1 of a mile, as we see the race 3 results. There we go. It was the Pro-Am driver Martin Shirley who took the overall win, with his teammate Paul Cook in 2nd. James Neve rounded out the podium for year 1 in 3rd. Lee Holmes was 4th. Joe Winter 5th. Luke Pullen was in 6th place, and Rob Jackson 7th. Luke Jones took the AM win in the race 3. Kip Stevens, we saw him make an appearance last week. He was 9th, and Craig McDonald was 10th for the 3rd race. And then for the final race of the evening, we went into the night, and I wonder if that's something we'll see as well happen tonight. But in that night race, as I say, it was the year 1 drivers who had the best of that final race. Of course, SimTech won the first 3, but in race 4, it was a victory for the year 1 driver of Luke Pullen, as we see there. Luke Pullen with the win. Wayne Douglas was 2nd, with Joe Winter in 3rd. Paul Cook 4th. James Neede 5th. Martin Shirley was 6th. Lee Holmes 7th. Craig McDonald 8th. Alistair Hatcher was 9th, and Chassis Fitzpatrick in 10th place. And that's how things ended up last week. And I really do think we could be in for some great racing at Brands Hatch. It's going to be quite narrow. As I say, there were some penalties handed out, and the ones which made quite a big difference, and we'll probably be seeing these in the qualifying session now. Although I do actually believe we have got someone who's already flouted this race control aren't going to look very, very well on this. Wayne Douglas was meant to be excluded from qualifying and start race 2 and 3 from the pit lane after having 2 exclusion offences in the same race in race 3 last time out at Donington. He was not meant to take to the grid, and I believe the punishment for that is straight away he'll be disqualified from the first race of the evening as well tonight. So that is going to have a knock-on effect. Also, the other driver who was excluded from qualifying, who's not actually here tonight, is Luke Pullen. So that penalty will carry over. But already drama in qualifying, as we see a driver out there who really shouldn't be on the track, Reese.
Lovely, yeah, and I think we're going over to trackside now to see the action. But yeah, as you mentioned, Wayne Douglas, he's got an exclusion from qualifying, but he's showing great pace, unfortunately for him. He's currently in P3 right now. We've got Paul Cook, who was very, very strong last week, currently leading the way, and then the defending champion, Andy McEwen, currently sat in P2. So it's looking very close at the top. But yeah, Wayne Douglas maybe should be out there. And then we've got James Neave in 4th and Ian Manners rounding out our top 5. So far, we've got 18 entrants for this evening's racing.
So 18 cars taking a loose bit of a loose wing mirror there on the 999 of Andy Slocum. He's one of our new drivers in the AM class. But as you say, we have 18 drivers out for tonight's racing. And the champ is here, Andy McEwen, who missed last week due to real-life commitments of broadcasting. You know, Andy, world-famous commentator around the world. He's a bit better at this than we are. He was away at the Norris Ring, I believe, in Germany. So back today and showing that he has got no sort of lack of racecraft, shall we say. 3rd place in his first qualifying session there. Let's say Paul Cook for Simtech on pole position. As far as the AM class goes, we have got currently the top AM driver is Alistair Hatcher, who won 3 AM races last week. In the actual fact, he is 8th overall. But maybe a bit later on, we'll go into the championship positions. But what surprised me, we had 2 of the AMs in the top 7. As we see Andy McEwen going towards pit lane. And of course, Reese, with the BSR, it's the 1-car rule. If you want to change tyres, you have to come in the pits and do it. And I believe taking a set front tyres, a set of fronts, will cost you about 22 seconds.
Yeah, no, so looks like they're splitting the qualifying session pretty much smack bang in 2 at the moment. Strategy a few of our runners have gone for. So yeah, they're coming in, they're grabbing some fresh boots, and hopefully going to be able to improve times. On the subject of improved times, Wayne Douglas has improved to P2 in session, and he's just coming for a fresh set of boots. He might be the only person I know who will qualify front row of the grid and not get to start there due to being a naughty boy. Dan, you seem to have read into the rules a little bit more than I have. Regarding disqualification from race 1, will he be disqualified post-race, or will that happen in session?
Not actually sure on how that is going to be enforced, but I do know that because he's left the pit lane, he will be getting disqualified from race 1. That's what I saw in the BSR rules and regs, which have been written up very lovingly by the team at BSR. And as we say, he shouldn't be on the track. So really, that is the punishment is he won't be on the track for the race potentially, or he get disqualified after. I would think in the circumstances that if it's noticed that he will be pulled from the race before, because you don't really want him in the race influencing things when he shouldn't be in there. But we'll see what happens with that one. But Paul Cook, currently fastest by 0.5 of a second to Wayne Douglas. Andy McEwen 3rd as Lee Holmes in 4th. Ian Manners is top Pro-Am in 5th. So Ian Manners, I believe, as well, in 6th overall. Ian Manners is actually in one of the Velosters, I believe. So the Hyundai Veloster actually currently heads the pack in Pro-Am ahead of last week's overall pole sitter, Martin Shirley. In the AM class, as I say, we have a rejuvenation of numbers. We had 3 last week. We have 6. So the field has doubled. But Alistair Hatcher is currently still the driver on top of the AM qualifying at the moment. New driver for this week, Reese Watt, is in 2nd and 3rd in the class. Mark Oliver and 4th is Andy Slocum. They are both new to the AM class for this week. Fiona Siddons, who was our AM champion last season, she is now in the Pro-Am class and sits right in the middle of that AM field. And we've got Glenn Humberston, Luke James and Chris Dixon rounding out the 18 car field. So we do have 3 more cars than we did last week. But some of the big names from last week missing, as I say, Joe Winter's missing. We're also missing Luke Pullen from Year 1 Racing as well. So 2 drivers who won races last week are not here. And what that will give is an opportunity for some of the new drivers to be at the top step of the podium. And it also brings in what we were saying last week about drop scores as well. There's only 2 meetings of drop scores. So it means that for the rest of the season, that if you miss a race because you're not able to attend, it means you've got to bring your A game every other week you're here.
Yeah, consistency will be key when it comes to the championship. And obviously, we're midsummer here in the UK, so a lot of people are on summer holidays. A few of our drivers do have real-life racing commitments as well. So, yeah, it's to be expected. It's a long championship, 10 rounds. So, finishing up, funnily enough, back here at Brands Hatch in about 8 weeks' time. So, we'll see who's crowned the victor then and how much missed weeks will come into it. I don't know if Andy McEwen's got any more races he can't miss. We know Lee Winter mentioned in his post-race interview, Joe Winter mentioned in his post-race interview last week, actually he's going to miss 3 rounds. So obviously only been able to drop 2. That's going to affect him when it comes to fighting for the title for sure. But yeah, it's still Paul Cook, who was very strong last week as well, leading the way in qualifying, still from Wayne Douglas as we've got 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, and Martin Shirley and Joe Winter, the top 2 in the championship. Paul Cook was actually 1 point behind Martin Shirley. So if he gets 2 points for pole position, of course, there are bonus points given in the championship for that. It will actually leap him into 2nd place in the championship without actually having raced the race, because he will be, he's 1 point behind, and the 2 points will put him a point ahead. So we could potentially see a change of 2nd in the championship in the qualifying. But I will just give you a quick rundown of the top 5 in the championship. Joe Winter does lead with 363 points. The Pro-Am driver Martin Shirley is 2nd with 345. Paul Cook is 3rd with 344. In 4th place is James Neve, and one of the Year 1 cars. He has 320. I see Rob Jackson going well off the track there. That's not the way around Brands Hatch Circuit. And in 5th place in the championship is Craig McDonald with 280 points. So already, really, some big gaps were starting to form as we go on board now with James Neve as he goes through Surtees up towards McLaren and breaks for Clearways. And as I say, this is the shortest track on the calendar at 1.2 miles. It is quite narrow as well. So I think we could see some interesting overtaking, especially early on in the laps at Paddock Hill and Druids. And the first couple of laps, I think, it can be more crucial around here than, say, someone like Donington Park. Because if you get stuck behind someone who's at relatively the same speed of you, it could be a very long race. And you need to make that move when you can.
Indeed. We saw last week a little bit more contact than we'd perhaps like. We saw Wayne Douglas getting caught out in McLean's a few times. And obviously he's been penalised, so he was judged to be at fault. We don't judge here at Year 1 TV. We leave that down to the clerk of the course and to the stewards to apportion blame. But yeah, you think maybe Paddock Hill Bend, especially maybe on a dive into Clearways or into Druids, we might see a bit more car contact tonight as well. These touring cars are built tough. The front-wheel drive as well, so they're hard to spin out. So they do encourage hard racing, but the drivers need to make sure they toe the line.
Yeah, as we come now to just under 2 minutes to go in this qualifying session, that has really gone fast. As we now look at the car of Shisha Fitzpatrick, currently sitting in 6th place, and she is one of 2 female drivers in the championship. We have Shisa and also Fiona Siddons as well, so a lot of diversity and inclusivity in the championship as well. We have 2 female drivers, and there are not many championships sort of in sim racing where you do have multiple female drivers. It's just sort of another element of why the British sim races is a great place to race, because you get people of all different backgrounds, and it's a very diverse mixture we have in this championship.
Yes, it's a fantastic championship. What I love about British sim races is you have some incredibly fast and talented guys at the front fighting for the outright title. But with having your different divisions, there's always somebody out there that you're racing on track. So even if you've not got the pace for overall wins, you've got your AM and your Pro-Am divisions. So everyone's always fighting for a championship, no matter the skill level you've got. I just think it's a great, fun, semi-serious championship to be involved in. And yeah, if you are looking to enter the series, watching the broadcast, say hello. Don't be a stranger in the YouTube chat. Also, as well, I believe they are still recruiting for the season 2. We're just heading into the final 40 seconds, so we'll see who gets to get an extra lap in, who crosses the line. Reese Watt just making a mistake there on our screens. Looks like no one's really improving at the moment. Lee Holmes is already in the pits, and we've still got the top three of Paul Cook, Wayne Douglas, and Andrew McEwen.
Yeah, and as you say, we are getting towards that later stage of the session now, just about 15 seconds to go, and there are some green sectors dotting around the track. The aforementioned Shisha Fitzpatrick has just gone fast in Sector 1, but hasn't improved in Sector 2. We've seen Wayne Douglas off the track, and we're interested to see what happens with Wayne. I think he will actually be the first driver to take the checker flag, or he stops in the middle of the circuit there, so he won't be the first one to take the checker flag after all. But as we see the checker flag come out, it is at the moment Paul Cook who sits on provisional pole position and will potentially take those 2 points. I can't see anyone at the moment going any faster. So Alistair Hatcher on a good lap as well, I've been told. So Alistair Hatcher, who got a hat-trick of AM wins, he's going to go into the pits. So he's bailed that lap and gone into the pits. And it looks like that pretty much all the drivers now have actually crossed the line for this qualifying session. Another one of the Velocitas there crossing the line as we look on screen at the 921 car, Glenn Humberston. Now that car doesn't look like it's going at full racing speed either and will be heading towards the pit lane. So I think unless there's any late drama, we've got about 20 seconds it looks like left for people to put the grid up on the 15 seconds left to get times in on this final lap. It's like Andy McEwen actually still on the lap at the moment as he goes around clearways towards Clark Cove. He's aiming towards the pits, and he'll be the final car in to end the session. So I think very shortly we'll have our grid. There it is. It's Paul Cook on pole position. Wayne Douglas has qualified second, but we're not sure if he will stay there due to the penalty that he has. Andy McEwen is qualified third with Lee Holmes fourth, and James Neve rounding out the top five. We have Shisa Fitzpatrick in sixth, Martin Shirley in seventh with Ian Manners eighth, and in ninth place is Craig McDonald. 10th place is Alistair Hatcher, who is pole position in the AM, and the Pro-Am pole goes to Martin Shirley, so second Pro-Am pole for him. And in the second half of the grid, we have in 11th place Rob Jackson, with the AM drivers of Reese Watt and Mark Oliver 12th and 13th. Andy Slocum 14th, Fiona Siddons is 15th, 16th Glenn Humberstone, 17th is Luke Jones, and Chris Dixon 18th did not actually set a time, so Chris Dixon in 18th place. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's quite a short, narrow circuit, and the run-up Paddock Hill Bend into Harewood Hill towards Druids, it's going to be an interesting one. But as we say, we have 4 15-minute races tonight. It's the same format as you would have seen on Tuesday night for the MX5s, and also the same as last week. So on pole position, Paul Cook, as we say, it was a very profitable weekend out last time, a meeting, shall I say, for Simtech at Donington. They took 3 of the 4 victories. Wayne Douglas has taken to the grid. We have Andy McEwen in third. He's the first of the year 1 drivers. We have Lee Holmes. Good to see Lee Holmes having a good qualifying session. He had a mixed meeting, as we said, last time out at Donington. So, about to get this race underway. Reese, what are your thoughts as we just get ready to go?
It's going to be some fantastic action. It'll be important to see as the lights are coming on. Paul Cook, can he get away from pole? Will Wayne Douglas be able to challenge? Racing under a cloud, of course. Lights are out. Drivers are launching away. Paul Cook doesn't look like he got much wheel spin. Get a great launch out. Wayne Douglas tucks in behind in P2. And then you got Andy McEwen following through in P3 into Paddock Hill Bend for the first time. It looks like they're all just about through cleanly. A few 2 wides, almost a 3 wide at the back as we're heading up the run towards Druids. Still, Paul Cook leading the way. We've got Wayne Douglas in second, Andy McEwen in third. So status quo at the front. In fact, not a change of position in the top 5. We've got Glenn Humberston making his way past Andy Slocum for P16. In fact, Andy Slocum getting him back now. Yeah, all single file, everyone behaving themselves. So far, at least. Obviously, we've got the big heavy braking zone now into clearways. But Paul Cook, he's got a nice lead. It's about 0.4 of a second from Wayne Douglas, and then about another half a second back to Andy McEwen. We're actually looking like he's under a little bit of pressure from Lee Holmes. We'll see how strong that slipstream effect is as we head down into turn 1. But so far, so good, Dan. Yeah,
Paul Cook, thank you very much, Reese. Paul Cook it is who leads the way, maybe a bit wide there into Paddock Hill Bend, which will give Wayne Douglas an opportunity to maybe catch a car length or 2, which he has done on the run-up towards Druids. Andy McEwen under pressure from Lee Holmes. Then we've got James Neve, Andy McEwen's League Year 1 teammate, in 5th place. Then we have our Pro-Am leader, who is Martin Shirley. He's currently in 6th place. You see a battle further back. That's Fiona Siddons, I think, there in the 501. It is getting past Craig McDonald. So there's one of the Simtech cars bouncing all across the grass. I think that was Rob Jackson. But Fiona Siddons having a great race there with Craig McDonald. They're side by side going through Surtees and McLaren. But under the brakes, it's Fiona Siddons who takes that position. So Fiona Siddons up into 12th place. And Fiona has already made up quite a few positions from her start. So great driving there from Fiona, as the fastest lap on lap 2 is set by Wayne Douglas of 48.779.
Yes, he's just under a quarter of a second now behind Paul Cook at the front of the field. And we've had a change of positions though, so we've got Reece Watt actually having a great start. He's up to P9 in AM, and on his AM debut, on his BSR debut, he's leading the way in the AM category. Oh, it looks like Paul Cook's gone a little bit wide there. And that's let Wayne Douglas right onto his bumper as we head through Surtees, through McLaren. Will he make a lunge on the brakes? Oh, it almost looked like he was going to hit him there. What a fantastic trailing shot we've got from the rear bumper of Paul Cook. You can see just how much those cars closed up under the braking. It's about 0.3 of a second this gap is, which looks a heck of a lot closer. It's a couple of car lengths as they're storming down to Paddock Hill Bend. I'd just like to say hello to Joe Winter, who's watching from a hotel room, gutted that he can't race, and he's really excited to down battle as Paul Cook runs wide. Wayne Douglas gets up the inside. He's racing up a cloud, under a cloud. If he wins, will he keep it? I'm not so sure, but he's not going to let that stop him. Obviously, the owner of Douglas Motorsport, he's on the outside now for Graham Hill Bend. Looks like Paul Cook's going to get back on through. Can Wayne Douglas do a crossover? Not quite, and we've now got Andy McEwen on the back of Wayne Douglas, so attack and defend there for him. But no, some great touring car action so far. Just under 12 minutes to go.
And that's the nature of the Brands Hatch circuit. Just like that, they've gone from having a bit of a gap to everything being bunched up. And Wayne Douglas really went for it there, going down the inside of Paul Cook into George. Wasn't able to make it stick. Paul Cook was able to get past on the inside of Graham Hill Bend. But what he's been able to do now is pull out a bit of a gap, about half a second, to Wayne Douglas. Andy McEwen in 3rd. Lee Holmes. We've got a massive 6-car train for the top 6 drivers. And then the 7th place, Ian Manners and Shazzy Fitzpatrick are a little bit further behind. But top 6, very close together. No one looks like they're going to be making a move at the moment. As far as the other classes go, Pro-Am has been currently led by Martin Shirley, with Ian Manners in 2nd place. And in 3rd in that class is Rob Jackson. And then the AMs, 9th and 10th overall, we've got Alistair Hatcher and Reece Watt. Although Reece Watt is falling down a timing screen. He is in the middle of the track, so Reece Watt has big substantial damage there to the front and left of that car. That is an absolute mess, that one, Reece.
Yeah, no, that car is, well, it's definitely done for the race. Fortunately, we're in the virtual world. Oh, and you can see the contact there, hard into the wall. You've got one of the Simtech racing cars off with him as well. I think that might have been Rob Jackson, actually. Yeah, destroying the left-hand side of Reece Watt's car there. A real shame for the debutant. But, yeah, no repair bills, fortunately for him, and he'll be back out for race 2, I'm sure, as we're looking back to this battle at the front.
Interesting instant, that one. It was 3 cars involved, but it's just where it got so narrow. Reece Watt was sort of, he was the victim in that one. There was 2 other cars who made the initial contact. There's a car going across the grass, although I think that might be Reece actually trying to make it. It's not Reece Watt, in fact. There's another car, it might be Glenn Humberstone, who was involved in that incident. It is Glenn Humberstone. So Glenn Humberstone was one of the other cars involved, and you say the Simtech car with Jackson. So those 3 cars involved, and just over 5 minutes gone in the race. It's not the start they wanted to have, but another one of those rules talk. They need to be within with a lap of the race winner if they're going to be classified and in contention for that reverse grid. Of course, it's the reverse grid draw we have after race 1, 2, and 3 that sets the grid for the races coming up. And as we see, that wheel could go anywhere from sort of 8 to 15. So those who are further down will have a chance, potentially, we saw last week as well, drivers who wouldn't normally be fighting for that pole position having a chance to lead. And Martin Shirley did incredibly well when he was near the front last time.
Yeah, it didn't faze him. Oh, he was very strong. His pace was fantastic. We saw the formation flying between the Simtech racing cars, especially in race 1. The man that's lighting up the timing screens though so far is Andy McEwen. He's set the fastest lap of the race, 18.116. About 700ths quicker than what Paul Cook has managed. But Paul has got a little bit of a gap, although Wayne Douglas is keeping him very much honest. And he got about half a second back to Andy McEwen. But yeah, this race, there's plenty of fight left in it. We know Wayne Douglas is nice and aggressive. He's got nothing to lose, as he might not have anything to gain here. So we'll see how he gets on. Will he make another dive, maybe into Druids again? But Paul Cook has to be inch perfect, because we know if you give Wayne Douglas half a sniff of an opportunity, he'll go for it.
Of course, Wayne Douglas, the former Autosport Young Driver of the Year nominee, and also, as we say, a champion in open wheelers in the mid-90s. So Wayne Douglas knows what he's doing behind the wheel of a race car, as we said before. He's also forged the careers of some big names in GT and open wheel racing as well. So not only a good driver, but also an aspiring team manager. So it'd be interesting to see how Wayne approaches this. Of course, Paul Cook, not far as a Lee Holmes, but it's like a wheel on the grass there. He got very loose coming through 30s. Luckily, though, Martin Shirley was not close enough to take advantage. But what that has done is broken a bit of the slipstream he had for Andy McEwen ahead. So what that's meant, just that small mistake from Lee Holmes, means that we now have 3 cars fighting for the lead and a bit of a gap back to this battle for fourth. Shirley trying to maybe go down the outside, thinks better of it. But what he may try and do is get a cut back a bit too far behind for that. But this race, as we come towards the halfway point, it doesn't look like there's any sign of this slowing down. In the top 6, I think at the moment, are the ones who could potentially take victory. But it'd be interesting to see what happens with Wayne Douglas. As we say, this result may not count for Wayne Douglas, so it could be in vain. As you see on screen at the moment, Alistair Hatcher, who is our leader in AM and has actually got quite a big lead following the demise of Reece Watt. The next car behind him is Luke Jones, who's actually 7 seconds on circuit behind him. We saw Hatcher making a small mistake there. He took a hat-trick of wins at Donington Park. Maybe he just needs to sort of switch it back a little bit. He has that big, massive lead. The last thing that we want to see from Hatcher is him making a mistake on his own and losing that AM win.
Yes, no, indeed. He's fairly strong so far. Also looking very good in class is Martin Shirley. Obviously, he won most of the races last time out in Pro-Am at Donington Park, and he's carrying that strong form forwards here at Grant Hatch, mixing it with the pros at the front of the field. He's got about a 4-second gap back to Ian Manners, who's second in class for Pro-Am. So again, looking comfortable. And I think key for Martin Shirley, I suppose, is just not getting too involved with those pros, thinking about the bigger picture, thinking about that Pro-Am class. Someone that might not be thinking of the bigger picture, though, is Wayne Douglas. And say he's 4 attempts back. Dan, I know you've got some great access to the goings-on behind the scenes in the BSR series. So if you do get any snippets of gossip from their Discord, do let us know of what will happen to Wayne Douglas. And the question is, he's got 2 pit lane starts for race 2 and race 3. If he's ignored his first race punishment, will he necessarily adhere to what he's been asked for, or will he in fact be a rebel without a cause here at Brands Hatch tonight?
I wonder if he'll be put to the back of the grid to negate any possible. It could be that Wayne Douglas doesn't even know he's got these penalties. I wouldn't have thought that Wayne Douglas is the sort of person who'd be doing this intentionally, but he's put himself right into the thick of the action for this first race. Nearly 2/3 of the way through, there is a car into the pits at the moment. That is one of the Hyundai Velocitas. I believe that's Chris Dixon. So our debutant Chris Dixon into the pits. We see there the number 900. So quite a few of the AM drivers have hit trouble in this race. We have got only, in fact, 2 or 3 of them. 3 of them actually still in contention. We got Dixon, Oliver, Humberstone, and Watts currently in the pits. The ones who are actually still on track are Alistair Hatcher. We've got the 514 of Luke Jones, and also the car of Andy Slocum. They're the only 3 AMs who are actually currently in contention for the race. The other 3 are going to be non-classified. See Wayne Douglas going through 30s of McLaren right on the rear bumper of Paul Cook. And this is some real intense pressure that Douglas is putting on to Paul Cook. And also, speaking of intense pressure, Lee Holmes doing it exactly the same against a former champion, a current champion even, Andy McEwen, in that number 1 year 1 car. Currently in 3rd place, and Lee Holmes not far behind him. Also, Martin Shirley is hanging on quite nicely as well, the Pro-Am leader, to this 5-car lead battle. And they are starting to drop James Neve a little bit in 6th place, but they have got a group of 2 at the front and a group of 3 further back. But this battle at the front is what's really intriguing me, because you've got to think it's only a matter of time before Wayne Douglas makes another serious move for the lead, considering that time is very slowly running out.
Paul Cook, though, must have the broadest shoulders in motorsport right now, because he's just holding the pressure off. He's putting the car exactly where he needs to. no big mistakes. We saw him miss an apex earlier on. That's what let Wayne Douglas have the go up the inside into Druids. But he's looked unflappable so far. With 3.5 minutes to go, it's what has Wayne Douglas got in his kit bag? What's he got in his locker? What can he throw at Paul Cook here? As I say, we're heading into, so it's 5 laps to go on the timing tower. So it'll be interesting to see when he chooses to make the move. It's hard to complete a pass here at Brands Hatch, as we know, because the corners going right and then left, and the elevation changes as well. Quite often, you'll make a move, you'll get up the inside, but you won't quite get clear, and then the other person will have the advantage, say, going into the next corner. Dan, I know you do quite a lot of real-life racing in the MX-5s. What's your thoughts? What's your hidden insight into the key to making a good overtake at Brands Hatch?
I've done a couple of days at Brands Hatch. It's really sort of a case of how late can you brake? Is it possible that you can just brake that a little bit later going into somewhere like Paddock Hill? But also a move which I've done a couple of times as well, which I haven't seen actually yet so far, is a late lunge on the inside towards going in towards McLaren and Clearways. If you can get the run down the Cooper Straight and going up into that section, it can be quite interesting. Speaking of battling, we could see another demonstration of how to overtake here, because Luke Jones and Fiona Siddons are having a great battle to take the final place in the top 10, and Luke Jones has got the run. Fiona defends bravely to the inside to start with. She can read that. Luke Jones having to go round the outside, and I think he may actually do it. That's a great move by Luke Jones, because not only he's got a pass there before Graham Hill, that is spectacular. Usually they would be side by side going through Graham Hill, but the momentum that he's gained has helped them. But Fiona fighting back valiantly down towards Surtees, and McLaren tries to push Jones a little bit away. The third car is involved as well. It's Craig McDonald. So this battle, even though further down the field for the last place in the top 10, one of the most explosive and exciting ones we have at the moment, Jones is currently, though, sitting in second place in AM, and the two drivers that he's fighting with are Pro-Ams. So the sensible side of him may think, do I actually need to battle these? But of course, these drivers are racers. It doesn't matter where they are in their AM categories as such. They're just trying to race and get as high a position as possible. And Fiona Siddons under pressure now from Craig McDonald. She's in that position where she's not sure if she needs to attack or defend to go into Graham Hill, and that's a great run from Craig McDonald. Fiona lost a lot of momentum there, and she's going to lose the position, I think, going into Surtees. She's on the outside. McDonald does have the favoured line. They're going to go side by side. Great move there from McDonald. Gets in front of Fiona, and that is great driving from Craig McDonald. He got the move done, but got far enough in front where Fiona Siddons wasn't able to fight back.
As we're focusing on this action, though, Dan, there's some action at the front of the field. Andy McEwen's got past Wayne Douglas. I think Wayne might have made a mistake last lap by. He did a 49.7, so almost 1.6 off the pace. And that's let Andy McEwen get by into P2 and Paul Cook to disappear off down the road, probably for a win, as Wayne Douglas goes up the inside into Clearways. Oh, I think they do just about rub doors. Andy McEwen's going to have a longer run round. He might get a slingshot through. He's going to get some draft white flags in the air. Barney's doing his thing. As I say, Andy McEwen looks to the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. There's not going to be a lot of space out there for him, but will he get the run down the hill towards Druids? He's right with him. Wayne Douglas covers the inside. We've got the third car there of Lee Holmes getting involved too. Let's say they're bumper to bumper. I think Andy McEwen's pushing him around Druids here on the final lap. This is fantastic racing from all of them involved. But it looks like Wayne Douglas might just have this covered and in the bag as they're settling down in single file heading towards Surtees.
Andy McEwen went wide there into Clearways, and that was just the invitation Wayne Douglas needed to get down the inside. But it looks like for the fourth time in 5 races, it is going to be a Simtech driver taking victory. It is Paul Cook, who took a victory last time out at Donington. He takes race 1 here at Brands Hatch. Round 5 goes to Paul Cook. Wayne Douglas takes second on the road. Whether he keeps it or not, though, will be a different matter. There was non-compliance with a penalty in qualifying. Andy McEwen takes third place, with in 4th place Lee Holmes. As we see, our AM winner Martin Shirley there in the 5:09. Another AM win for him this season. James Neve takes 6th. Ian Manners in 7th place, and 8th was Josie Fitzpatrick. And our AM winner, taking his 4th AM win in 5 races, is Alistair Hatcher. He takes the AM victory from Luke Jones, who rounds out the top 10. That battle we saw between McDonald and Siddons went the way of Craig McDonald. He takes 11th, Fiona Siddons 12th, with Rob Jackson 13th, Andy Slocum in 14th, and those are the only 14 who were classified. We did have 4 drivers who retired from that race, but I think very shortly we will see the full standings. But Reese, once again, the Simtech driver takes victory of Paul Cook, and the last 5 minutes or so were a bit easier for him when he started fighting from behind, but Paul Cook got his head down and did what had to be done.
As I say, absolutely unflappable drive for him. He'll be thrilled. He'll be hoping for a nice small number on the reverse grid draw, which, as I say, we'll be getting in a moment. I'm sure Joe Winter shouting his head off in a hotel room at the moment in support of his teammate too. No, fantastic racing up and down the field. Luke Jones managing to keep P10, holding off the 2 primes of Craig McDonald and Fiona Siddons as well. And yeah, Alistair Hatcher winning the AM category. A bit of a canter, but yeah, still a Hyundai show. Luke Jones actually in P10 being the first non-Hyundai driver. And Cheshire Fitzpatrick. Oh, sorry, Ian Manners, in the Veloster was the highest placed non-Elantra in P7. So very good racing. I say, hopefully we'll get some results and we'll get a spinning wheel soon. No expenses spared on the spinning wheel of fortune. But yeah, so reverse grid draw coming up. So Dan, take it away.
Here we go then. So for the first time tonight, we will see Graham Sesswood's spinning wheel. And what would it bring up for us? I think that's going to be 10. And it is going to be 10th place. And what that means is that battle that we saw for 10th place towards the end of that race with Luke, Craig and Fiona, it has turned out to be massively important because it means that you have an all-out front row with Luke Jones on pole position. Alistair Hatcher will be on 2nd place.
Yep, so very, very important there in the AM standings because it gives them just a massive gap over the rest of the field there. So Luke Jones, not knowing how important that fight was for him, but it's worked out for him very, very well indeed. Paul Cook, I suppose he might be relatively happy with that. He might have probably hoped for a 5 or a 6, I suppose, would have been ideal for him, but at least it's not like a 12 or a full grid reverse. And he'll be pretty confident that he might be able to fight back through from the top 10, maybe even into the top 5. But I think we've got the podium coming up right now.
Yeah, we got the provisional podium. It is Paul Cook who takes victory for Simtech. Wayne Douglas provisionally, as you say, 2nd place. There may be a penalty for him for not for taking part in qualifying. And we see Andy McEwen, last season's champion, his first race of the season. He takes 3rd place and rounds out the podium. And the situation with Wayne Douglas will have a knock-on effect for the grid as well, of course, because what it could mean is that Paul Cook will actually start this race from a 9th place rather than 10th if Wayne does not take the start. But let's see there the full standings. Simtech's Paul Cook winning with the Douglas Motorsport driver Wayne Douglas 2nd. Andy McEwen rounds out the podium in 3rd. 4th place is Lee Holmes. And then we have our Pro-Am winner, Martin Shirley, in 5th. 6th was James Neves with Ian Manners and Cheshire Fitzpatrick 7th and 8th in their Velosters. 9th and the AM winner is Alistair Hatcher. And 10th place in the Audi is Luke Jones, who was 2nd in AM. The second half of the results up now. We've got Craig McDonald in 11th. Fiona Siddons saw her getting stuck in. She finishes in 12th, with Rob Jackson 13th and Andy Slocum in 14th. And the 4 drivers who were not classified and will start at the back of the grid for the race 2 are going to be Chris Dixon, Mark Oliver, Reese Watt, and Glenn Humberstone. So, as you say, Reese, a very exciting battle there during the first race. And it was a typical Brands Hatch race, really, because it took a mistake to change the positions there between Andy and Wayne, and also sort of further on as well. We saw Wayne make that big mistake, which cost him time. We'll be back though for race 2 with more action of from Brands Hatch on Year One TV.
I think we've caught production out there.
I thought it was that part of the show. We done our bit. It's so like. Welcome back to Year One TV, your home of the British sim racers. We are here ready for the second race of the evening here at Brands Hatch, and we have had a look during the break between races, and it looks like Wayne Douglas may potentially lose this race. And we see he's broken rule point 7.1 of the BSR regulations, which state the penalty has to be taken in that race. So, be interesting to see if he's got the message about race 2 or 3. Or if he doesn't get the message, it could be a very painful night for Wayne.
Indeed, but hopefully he might have got the message now. We don't think it was intentional, but it might cause him some further pain in meeting 3 next week. But yeah, as we're rolling on around race 2, quickly coming upon us, just under 2 minutes of practice, we've got a couple of extra drivers as well compared to race 1. So Luke Pullen has connected, as well as Craig Schill as well. So we are now up to, I think we've got a complement of 19 drivers, which makes me think we've lost somebody along the way as well. But as we run through the grid, I'm sure we'll spot who's missing there. But yeah, as the drivers are doing some early practice, it looks like the track's a touch slower. And James Neve is currently fastest in the warm-up session for race 2. Obviously, we've got, I'm just looking down the order just now, we've got Luke Jones on pole position for the race. What's your prediction for race 2, Dan?
It's going to be interesting. I think we've got some of the drivers, sort of the likes of James Neve, Martin Shirley. We've seen them race near the front and take podiums, and they are going to be in quite a decent position. Also, we've got the two Velosters on the second row of Saoirse Fitzpatrick and Ian Manners as well. So that'll be something else to watch. Another factor, see how the Velosters get on against the Elantras, and we've got Luke Pullen as well. And interesting to see that Luke Pullen's joined for race 2, but because he hasn't served that penalty earlier on, of course, he'll be excluded from qualifying at the next meeting he attends. So he has a penalty to serve in a future meeting, but that won't affect him for this race. But it's going to be interesting to see how far as well Paul Cook can come through the field as well. We've seen the SimTech drivers be very quick this season, and say 4 of the first 5 races have been won by drivers on that team, but Luke Pullen being the only driver to break that chain. But Luke Pullen, having missed the first race, he'll have to start right at the back for this second race, as will Craig Schill, making a welcome debut to the championship as well. He wasn't here last week. I believe he's at the British Grand Prix marshalling, was Craig, but he's missed race 1, and this will be his first foray into the championship, and it could be a baptism of fire for Craig, but it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in that car.
Indeed, but now I'm sure we'll be looking forward to it. We are just about to start gridding up now, so if we can get some graphics, that'll be great. Throwing production on the bus there for the second time tonight. But yeah, as the drivers are starting to grid on up, you can hear the engines rising. Dan, why don't you take us through the running order?
So here we go then. On pole position is, as we say, it is the car of Jones, with Hatcher alongside him in second. James Neve is in fact, I think my grid's a bit messed up as well. It's Jones, Hatcher, Manners. We've got Neve, Shirley. It looks like it may actually be Saoirse Fitzpatrick we've lost from the session. That is the driver who is missing. So it is Jones, Hatcher, Manners, and Neve on the first 2 rows. We have Martin Shirley and Lee Holmes on row 3. Andy McEwen 7th. Wayne Douglas 8th. And it looks like Wayne Douglas is not made the grid, so he may be taking his penalty now. 9th is going to be Paul Cook with Craig McDonald 10th. But what that will mean, as we see the rest of the field, we've got Fiona Siddons 11th, Rob Jackson 12th, Andy Slocum 13th. As we get ready, lights get ready to go then. So race is about to get underway for the 6th time this season. Lights on, lights up, we're underway, and it's a very poor start from one of the Hyundais on the second row. I think that was the car of that was Martin Shirley. Actually who it was, but
I think it was Alistair Hatcher.
I think it was Alistair Hatcher, but Jones it is who has the lead. In second place is going to be James Neve. So James Neve said he might be one to watch out for this race. He's made a really good start and is up into second place, but under a bit of pressure as the car goes wide as well, going through Graham Hill Bend onto Cuba Straight. But it's a dream start for Jones in the Audi, who leads, and also, of course, by leading the first lap, he will take 2 bonus points.
I'm sure that'll matter for him when it comes to the AM Championship towards at the end of the season. But no, some very good starts. James Neve obviously up to P2 already. And he has got Ian Manners all over the back of him right now as we head towards Paddock Bend at full racing speed for the first time. But a great start as well from Andy McEwen and Paul Cook, respectively up to P5 and P6 each. We've got Wayne Douglas, who, even though he started from the pit lane, he's already made up 4 spots on lap 1. He's already up to P15. As we're 3 wide down into Druids, you've got the Simtech car of Martin Shirley on the inside of Ian Manners, just pushes him wide. You've got Andy McEwen hanging out around the outside. Not going to be a lot of space there as they head down to Graham Hill Bend. Ian Manners keeping P3 so far as they're heading down towards Surtees. There's a bit of contact, I think, there, door to door. Shirley on the inside, Manners on the outside. Through McLaren they go, and it looks like Shirley's just got ahead there, but Manners comes back out. Obviously, these drivers both in the Pro-Am division as well as the Championship, so they are fighting for overall class victory. Andy McEwen obviously trying to find a way through it, and you've got Paul Cook keeping a watching brief. McEwen just edging past Shirley as they come down the start-finish straight, and he sends it up the inside. Really sends it up the inside of Ian Manners there. Doesn't quite get clear, and as we're watching that, we can see in front of us as well, James Neve's got ahead of Luke Jones into Paddock Hill Bend. Luke Jones can't quite fight back, so we've got Team Year 1 at the front as Paul Cook goes past Andy McEwen, so it's all change here in the top 5 as we've started lap 3.
That's the car Martin Shirley we saw there as Barry White gets Ian Manners on the exit of Graham Hill, and Andy McEwen is the one who's going to have to run and take the position. So Andy McEwen, he was down 5th a couple of corners ago, back up into 3rd place, but it just shows what a slight mistake can do. Ian Manners sideways, he's sideways across the track. Is anyone going to hit him? No, he pulls to the inside of the track, but that is going to cause a bit of a gap now in the field. There's going to be a bit of a break, but as we see, James Neve got through on Luke Jones into the lead. James 2nd, leading AM. Andy McEwen up into 3rd place, with Paul Cook in 4th. So Paul Cook, in the space of 3 laps, has already made up 4 places. He did start in 8th place because Wayne Douglas did not get the... he started from the pit lane, but also we had the car of Shissa Fitzpatrick not turn up for the 2nd race, so that was another spot gained. But the battle in at the front, James Neve made a great move on Luke Jones, and Luke Jones, though, will settle for 2nd place. They are in different classes, but James Neve already putting out a massive gap, over a 2nd already in just 1 lap.
Another driver I'd like to mention as well is Wayne Douglas. We mentioned he made 4 spots up on the first lap. Well, he's made a few more spots up. He's already up to P8, P9. He's side by side with Rob Jackson, we can see on our timing screens. And they're right behind Alistair Hatcher as well. So he's fighting his way back through the field hard. In fact, Luke Pullen's got by as well, so he might have made a mistake there in clearways. He drops 2 spots, but Wayne Douglas, we know him, he's a wise old fox. As you mentioned, you know, a decorated driver from even back in the 90s. Showing age has no limits, which I'm sure he won't thank me for. But to say he's fighting his way back through the field after his pit lane start in race 2. Obviously, he'll have to do it all over again in race 3 as well, as it looks like he's going to get the run up the inside down the back stretch. Can he poke his nose in Surtees on the year 1 car? Not quite on Luke Pullen. Luke obviously doing very well. It's his first race, and that's what else. Douglas goes up the inside into clearways, locks the wheel up, just about muscles his way through. Andy McEwen as well, off screen, gets past Luke Jones into P2, and I'm sure Paul Cook's a 2nd behind. He's watching it. Luke Jones fighting back. We can see them swapping places. So we'll see how that one shakes out as they're going 2 wide through Paddock Hill Bend. A bit of contact between Pullen and Douglas. These guys taking touring car racing to the absolute extreme. Looks like Pullen's going to keep it for another lap or so, but Wayne Douglas really wanting to get on with this and trying to make the move where he can.
Luke Pullen, another one of those drivers who started further down the pack, having missed the first race, but already up into 9th place, carrying on the fabled number 27 for year 1. And Luke Pullen, of course, also a real-life driver in the BRSCC Mazda MX-5 Championship as well in real life. So Luke Pullen, a lot of knowledge in MX-5s, and in the touring car, he is pretty quick as well. So see him looking to make a move on Rob Jackson, and that'll be for 8th place for Luke. He's primarily placed on the inside. That late break's late, as I was saying earlier. It's all about the late break in there for Luke Pullen. Makes the move stick, and more importantly, maybe, has put a car between himself and Wayne Douglas. Wayne Douglas, so very late. Oh, a little bit of contact there, but I think that would just about be tolerated. Although the car he was fighting there, Rob Jackson, let's have a bit of an overlap side by side into Graham Hill. Rob Jackson in the Simtech car goes past, but it just shows how much this fighting costs, because already Luke Pullen, who was with them a few corners ago, has already pulled out a second and a half just by them fighting for 2 corners.
Indeed, some fantastic racing. Wayne Douglas absolutely sending it into Druids. As I say, only give that man half an opportunity and he will find it. James Neve, though, comfortably leading so far. He's just set the fastest lap of the race as well. It's 2 seconds clear up the road from Andy McEwen. It's currently a year 1-2. Pardon the pun on that one. With Luke Jones rounding out our podium so far. But it's got Martin Shirley and Paul Cook bearing on down. Jones leading our AM category. Shirley leading our Pro-Am class. And obviously James Neve leading Pro and overall. So all to play for. We've got 8.5 minutes to go. So not even at halfway. This race is rumbling away to a fantastic rate to knots. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out here. As you see, Martin Shirley having a little look at the inside of Luke Jones, but he's just a little bit too far back so far. No, plenty of action to come. Don't go anywhere, guys.
Luke Jones holding on very well there to be 3rd place overall. As we say, he is an AM driver. He's got the Pro-Am leader, Martin Shirley, behind him, and then Paul Cook, our race 1 winner. But a very admirable showing so far from Luke Jones. On the last lap, Andy McEwen about half a tenth slower than James Neve at the front. James Neve with a 48.735. Andy with a 48.77. As we see a move going down the inside, that is Paul Cook under attack from the car of, that is Lee Holmes. And ahead as well, Martin Shirley and Jones were side by side going through Surtees in towards McLaren. So battles wherever he goes, tries it down the inside, but well covered off there from Luke Jones. Denies Martin Shirley the opportunity, and we saw what can happen if you make that lunge at going in towards clearways when we saw Wayne Douglas do it a couple of laps ago. The element of surprise, though, is not something that's going to catch out our current 3rd place and leader, although maybe a little bit wide there from Shirley. And we heard last week that there were some team orders at Simtech. I wonder if that's something they'll be utilising. It got very late on the brakes there for Shirley, but I was quite surprised when Joe Winter said last week there were team orders in play, considering it was the first round of the championship.
Yes, but it's clever play from the team. It's good of them to manage it that way. I would say, though, Martin Shirley does look the more racy of the 2 Simtech cars in this battle. So I'd say, maybe if they are considering team orders, it might be actually Paul Cook to late. As I say that, it looks like Martin Shirley lets Paul Cook through. So, yeah, no, it is Simtech for the timing on that one. So you got Paul Cook next to have a crack at Luke Jones. And he's already got a great run out of clearways. He's got the slipstream. It's looking like he's going to look to the outside, which doesn't normally cut it, but he might get the run through Paddock Hill Bend and up the inside into Druids now. He's very, very close. He's having a look. He's going to send it late on the brakes. And Luke Jones goes wide, and he's going to let all 3 of them by, it turns out. So Cook, Shirley, and Holmes all getting past Luke Jones there. So a great move there by Simtech Racing. They've swatched drivers around, and within 3 corners, it's paid off for them. Although they are 3 seconds back from Andy McEwen now. So they might struggle to advance on the 2 year 1 cars in front. As we say, year 1 cars in front, we can see James Neve here out front in a class of his own right now. 3 seconds ahead of Andy McEwen. That gap not really shrinking. James Neve keeping it pretty much the same. He might be 100.42 quicker each lap so far. But yeah, very, very stable gap. James Neve is proud of how the race is going after that dream start he had.
Really impressive what I've seen from James Neve in the first 2 meetings of the season. Has really developed as a driver since the last time I saw him race, and it's great to see that he's able to go sort of lap for lap with Andy McEwen, who is last year's champion in the touring cars. And what it means is that potentially with Luke Pullen as well, they've got 3 good drivers who will be able to face off to Simtech potentially later in the season. And when all the teams are at full strength, it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I think that could be sort of the big team battle through the course of the year. Will be Simtech versus year 1. You see James Neve in the lead with 2nd place Andy McEwen, Paul Cook and Martin Shirley are 3rd and 4th. They're doing that. We saw the Simtech formation flying at Donington. It's made a return, but Lee Holmes is tagging along for the ride as well. And also Luke Jones dropped down to 6th. I do wonder if potentially he was thinking maybe about the class positions there, because traditionally these drivers are a bit quicker than Luke Jones. Luke Jones is leading the AM class, but the fastest lap, in fact, has just been done by the car behind him, which is Wayne Douglas, 48.637. So Douglas on the move, and with just about 4.5 minutes to go, I think there's every chance that we could see a fight for 6th place very soon between Luke Jones and Wayne Douglas.
Yeah, you can see just the way Wayne Douglas is attacking the circuit. He means business here. And I mean, what a drive from him, from the pit lane to P7, possibly P6. He's really got the bit between his teeth. You can see that the battle, the two Simtech cars facing it off against the 88 Tech car of Lee Holmes there for the final podium place. But yeah, you can visibly see by each passing corner down each straight just the extra momentum Wayne Douglas has got. He's really, really flying. He did a 48.5 last lap compared to Luke Jones's 49.3, so 0.8 of a second, and you can see that gap visibly shrinking corner by corner, straight by straight. He might even be close enough to have a move into Paddock Hill Bend on the next lap. We'll see how this develops. Hopefully we can stay with it, but it's looking great as we've got the onboard view, and oh, look at the weight gains on the brakes there. It's tighter on the apex as well. This is going to be an easy, I think, Wayne Douglas. We'll see what defence Luke Jones can offer.
Yeah, Wayne Douglas, the fastest driver on the track on the past couple of laps. He's had a nice slipstream, and we say, I think he'll get later on the brakes, and Jones doesn't go down the inside on this occasion, but you've got to think it's a matter of when, not if, in that battle. Behind as well, there's a nice battle going on. We saw Rob Jackson, Luke Pullen, and Alistair Hatcher taking each other to the limits, and it was Luke Pullen who came out on top there and actually started to pull away from Jackson and Hatcher. They were side by side when they crossed the line the last time, Pullen and Hatcher, but Pullen got through. And speaking of side by side, Wayne Douglas on the run into Surtees trying to go past Jones. They were side by side. They still are. Contact between the two. Douglas goes round as well to hold on to a key position. Wayne Douglas, though, won't be too happy with that, I don't think. Jones, though, fighting really hard, takes the place back. And Wayne Douglas, we're having a replay to see what happened here. As I say, Wayne Douglas got the more momentum coming off of Graham Hill. They went into Surtees side by side. Let's see what happened. Oh, it's sort of two cars met in the middle. I think there might be one potentially for the Clarks to look at after the meeting. But there's some good racing there between the two of them. And then Wayne Douglas will have to try and make that move stick again. But what's happened is, where they've lost so much time, the pack behind, including, as we say, the driver of Luke Pullen, got Jackson Hatcher, they are starting to close. So Wayne Douglas will want to make this move sooner rather than later, especially as we have just under 2 minutes to go. But defended well there from Jones. He's either seen that move that Douglas pulled earlier on tonight, or he's had that done to him before, and he's not going to let that happen now.
No, it looks like Wayne Douglas has got to the outside. Again, it's very difficult to find the room around the outside at Paddock Hill Bend, but Wayne Douglas is going to give it a go. We know he's got a bit extra space. Is he going to get the crossover? Or no, he's all the way around the outside. A repeat of the move we saw in race 1 here, I think. Around the outside he goes there. There may be bump doors on entry. Douglas will have the outside. He'll get the off Druids. He'll have the inside down to Graham Hill Bend. Oh, they've touched! They've collided. Wayne Douglas goes round and into the wall. Oh, might have narrowly avoided it, but he's going to tumble back down the order. And he'll be seething underneath his virtual helmet there. Hopefully he rejoins nice and safely. Oh, kind of rejoins into the path of traffic as well. Needs to be careful there. No damage caused though to any driver. Yeah, Wayne Douglas won't be too happy about that. The two cars came together on the entry into Graham Hill Bend, and yeah, Wayne Douglas unfortunately keeps his charge just there. He's keeping the stewards busy, that's for sure. For instance, not just at Donington, but here at Brands Hatch. Now, Luke Jones retaining P6 so far. He's got Luke Pullen, Jackson, and Manners between himself and Alistair Hatcher for the AM class victory. And it's looking like Martin Shirley has got Pro-Am all wrapped up here in race 2 as well. But now, Neva McEwen still formation flying, still just under 3 seconds the gap. And it looks like the year 1-2 is on.
It looks like we'll be starting the final lap as well. We've just got about 13 seconds left on the clock. So with 1 lap to go, it's James Neve crossing the line. And say the gap is massive to Andy McEwen. It's about 3 seconds, which, as we say, in BSRTC terms, is quite a big gap. We're used to seeing close racing, that battle between Jones and Douglas. Very fierce racing, and that'll be decided in the Clark's office, I think, after this meeting. But one person who's not going to have any sort of problems with Clark's this race anyway, it's going to be James Neve. He took the lead nice and early with the move on Jones, and he hasn't relinquished it and has drove an absolutely perfect race so far. So James Neve just has 2 corners to go. He goes around towards Clearways, just Clark curve to go. And it looks like James Neve is well on track to take round 6 of the championship. It is going to be a year 1-2. James Neve it is taking victory. Andy McEwen in second place. Simtek are going to take third and fourth with Paul Cook and our Pro-Am winner, Martin Shirley. It's going to be Lee Holmes in fifth. Luke Pullen crosses the line to take sixth. And our Am winner, provisionally on the road, is Luke Jones. It's to say that there is that sort of question mark between himself and Wayne Douglas to be sorted. Eighth place is going to be Rob Jackson with Ian Manners in ninth. Second in Am did get to Alistair Hatcher, but it was close because Reece Watt not far behind him at all. 12th was Mark Oliver. 13th place for Craig Shield in his first appearance of the season. You'll see the year one cars in formation from that year 1-2. Wayne Douglas did finish 14th, so he did finish the race, but we'll be very disappointed with that. In terms of cars that did not finish, there are 3 cars who won't be classified in this race. They are Craig McDonald, very near the end of the race, Craig McDonald. In fact, he was 1 lap away from being classified. 2 laps down for Craig McDonald. Chris Dixon and Andy Slocum, the other drivers who have had issues in that race. But another good race in the BSR TC there. As we saw, James Neve and Andy McEwen, they were the class of the field in that one, especially James, pulling away, and he wasn't looking back.
No, James Neve, he had a fantastic start. He got clear of Luke Jones on lap 2 or 3, I think it was, and then he just never looked back. Andy McEwen doing a very good job picking his way through the field. He managed to get a car or 2 in between him and Paul Cook, and he managed to just pull away there for P2. A bit of formation flying maybe from Simtek. Not sure if there was any team orders there. Maybe Joe Winter can divulge some more secrets for us with that one. But yeah, Paul Cook rounding out our podium ahead of the Pro-Am winner Martin Shirley. So again, as you mentioned during the race, looks like we're going to have a titanic battle all season long between the Year 1 cars and Simtek Racing. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. But an honourable mention as well to Lee Holmes in the 88 Tech car, who kept those 2 Simtek cars honest all the way through the race. We saw him not afraid to mix it up and get stuck in as well.
Exactly. Sort of Lee Holmes, you could say, sort of best of the rest, because the Year 1 and particularly Simtek sort of dominating the early rounds of the BSR TC. I think it's going to be very hard for any other drivers really to take victories when they can. But James Neve, as I say, very impressive how he drove in that race, and it is his first win of the season. We saw throughout the field as well some very close battling. That battle between Jones and Douglas, it was fierce touring car racing. There was a lot of door banging. Unfortunately, there was the contact there which sent Douglas round. He was lucky he was able to keep it out with the wall though to finish the race. I thought he was going straight into the tyre barrier, but just got the car into position where no damage was caused. But unfortunately, damage was caused to his race. He has to pit start again in the next race, and so it's one where no matter where he finished in that race, though, he would have to start from the pits anyway. But still, not good to grab the points. And speaking of reverse grid, I imagine very soon Mr. Sesswood will have his spinning wheel ready for the second time tonight.
Yeah, I think he's just grabbing it from the next room. So we'll have the spinning wheel of fortune on our screens in just a moment to find out how far back James Neve will be starting. So Dan, if you'd like to take it away.
There we go. So it is time for that spinning wheel. It's going to be another quite low one. Yeah, it's going to be 9th place, which puts Ian Manners in the Veloster on pole position. Alongside him will be Rob Jackson. And then we have Luke Jones and Luke Pullen on row 2. As we see the podium coming up now, it is James Neve who takes victory, Andy McEwen second in the Year 1-2, and Paul Cook in 3rd place. And I can confirm it is a 9-car reverse for race 3. But the 2 Year 1 drivers there taking the first 2 spots. So say Paul Cook, 3rd for Simtek. Martin Shirley, Pro-Am winner in 4th. Lee Holmes was 5th for 88 Tech. Luke Pullen in 6th place with Luke Jones 7th. And our Am winner. 8th was Rob Jackson. Closely fought battle with Ian Manners and Alistair Hatcher. Ian Manners in 9th place gets that reverse grid pole position. Alistair Hatcher in 10th place with 11th place going to Reece Watt, another one of our Am drivers, followed by Mark Oliver. Craig Shield, a debut in 13th. Wayne Douglas, so unfortunate there to finish 14th. Towards the end of the race, he really found some pace and was the fastest driver on track. Glenn Humberston, 15th. Fiona Siddons brings her car home in 16th. And the drivers who were not classified from that race, Craig McDonald, Chris Dixon, and Andy Slocum. So 19 cars it was who took to the grid. As I say, Shisha Fitzpatrick, a non-starter for this one. We'll see if she comes out for race 3. But that will bring, if Shisha does come back out, it will make a 20-car grid for the first time this season, as we're going to see what we have in store for the rest of the season after tonight's racing at Brands Hatch. We go to Silverstone for the international circuit before we go on to the 300 layout at Snettington before the away trip at Monza for week 5. We then go over to Scotland for Knock Hill. That's going to be one worth watching, I can tell you. Alton Park Island is week 7, with Donington Park a second visit there to the Grand Prix circuit for week 8. Meeting 9 sees a second trip to Silverstone to the national circuit, and that'll be close racing, I can tell you. And the final one, probably one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most, Brands Hatch GP, never fails to disappoint. And a really stacked calendar ahead with 6 races out of 40 to go. 6 races of 40 through the season. And Silverstone International next week. I think that's going to be an interesting layup. So what we're going to do now is, I believe very shortly, we are going to go for a quick break. And we'll see you for race 3, the British Sim Racers Touring Cars from Brands Hatch. Hello and welcome back to Year One TV. We are already halfway through our night's racing, absolutely flown by that second race. We saw the Year 1-2, James Neve and Andy McEwen taking the top 2 places, and we've seen previously last season Andy's consistency gaining him a championship win, and he's just going about his business again this season doing that. I believe as well that during the course of the break, Reese was having a look at the current point standings for the evening, and how are things looking so far after 2 races?
So after 2 races, a quick run through of the order. So Paul Cook's actually scored the most points tonight with 185 points, with James Neve only 9 points behind, and then Andy McEwen a point behind his Year 1 teammate there. Martin Shirley is currently in P4 for the evening, but he's tied on points with Lee Holmes for our top 5 just there. As I say, we've got about 30 seconds to go before race 3. Luke Jones is winning our AM class. He's got 142 points. And Martin Shirley leading our Pro-Am category as well. So all going well for them just there. And looking over our stats page for the championship so far, it's Paul Cook who's winning in total with 2 wins under his belt. But James Neve, Martin Shirley, Joe Winter, Luke Pullen have also got a win apiece so far this season. Last season's champion hasn't got any wins yet, though, Andy McEwen. He'll be hoping to break that duck as we start to head to the grid for race 3, Dan.
Yeah, third race at the evening, we had the reverse grid, which brought up 9, which is Ian Manners in the Hyundai Veloster. So we've got one of the Velosters on pole position, as we say, for race 3, as we see very shortly. The grid starting to assemble for this one. It's Ian Manners on pole position with the car of Rob Jackson in second. Luke Jones is third with Luke Pullen fourth. Holmes and Shirley on row 3. The fourth row is where you see Paul Cook and Andy McEwen. 9th place is James Neve, our winner from race 2, with Alistair Hatcher rounding out the top 10. And then right on the second half of the field, we've got Reese Watt, Mark Oliver, Craig Shield, Wayne Douglas, Glenn Humberstone, Fiona Siddons, and Craig McDonald. Also, we have Chris Dixon and Andy Slocum, I believe, as well on the grid. As we see, 19 cars again for this one. So, unfortunately, once again, we are missing Shearsher Fitzpatrick from the grid. But race 6 of the season is about to get underway. Race 7 even, shall I say. So for the 7th time this season, lights go on. Lights go out. Now we're underway, and it looks like a good start from the front row there from Ian Manners. Rob Jackson alongside, though, going into Paddock Hill will try and take the lead. But the Veloster it is who takes the lead as they go up to Harewood Hill towards Stewards. Further back in the field as well, I can see that is Fiona Siddons. And James Neve has dropped down a few places. He's up down into 12th place. So our race 2 winner had a few problems there, it looks like, at the start. But at the front, as they go down Graham Hill for the exit for the first time, it's Ian Manners leading. But Luke Pullen, a man on a charge already, looking to fight for second place already.
Yes, he's had a great start. Oh, as Rob Jackson goes wide, he needs to be careful as he comes back on there. It's so easy to slide off and then slide back on and almost skittle out the people that you were racing with. We saw it happen in the Formula 1 actually at the weekend with Roy Nissany as he forced off Dennis Hauger there. But I'd say as we come down towards turn 1 for the second time, yeah, it looks like Rob Jackson might have got a slowdown there as he's gone off the course in 30s and come back on, and that's caused a bit of a concertina effect. And it looked like Luke Jones, who'd done so well winning the AM category in race 2, unfortunately he's got turned around with this, as he was accounting for the slow car there for Rob Jackson, and that drops it all the way back to P18. Hopefully, I think he's got loads of damage there. The car pretty damaged. I can see the circuit poking through a gap in the dash there, so that car has definitely seen better days right now. He's getting back going. Hopefully he's not got too much damage right about the race, but yeah, you can just see he gets turned around there and he's spinning off towards the inside. Doesn't look like too big a hit, so he should be okay. He should carry on. But yeah, unfortunately for him, drops him right back down the field. But Ian Manners currently set the fastest lap of the race here on lap 2. And he's got Paul Cook already up to P2 and 1.6 seconds behind. So Paul doing very well fighting through the field. And then you got Luke Bullen in third with Lee Holmes and Martin Shirley round out top 5. It's Martin Shirley though. Yeah, fantastic start for Paul Cook. Martin Shirley currently third in Pro-Am. Might be the first time tonight he doesn't win the category because Ian Manners leading the race overall so far. Also, as I say, leading the Pro-Am category, but I'm sure Paul Cook will have something to say about that, Dan.
Yeah, Paul Cook goes wide though, going into clearways, and that allows Luke Bullen to inch up a little closer. But Paul Cook, a fantastic start to the race. As you say, he started down in just outside the top 5, I think, in this one. He started the race in 6th place, but Paul Cook already up into 2nd place. You've got Luke Bullen in 3rd. Lee Holmes has had a very consistent night as well tonight. He's sort of always been there or thereabouts that top 5. Same for Martin Shirley as well. Now, speaking of consistency, Andy McEwen's in a bit of a battle, I think, with Reece Watts just behind the top 5 there, as we see Lee Holmes putting pressure on Luke Bullen as they go up towards McLaren and Clearways for what will be the 4th time. But the gap between Manners and Cook already down to under a second, 0.85. So looks like already that we are seeing that gap close down, and the SimTech driver will be looking to make a move very shortly, and it will be a battle of the Hyundais because we've got the Veloster currently in the lead, but the Elantras are chasing him down quickly.
Yes, they're all coming. Paul Cook pulling along, and Luke Bullen, Lee Holmes and Martin Shirley with him as well. So again, we might see, obviously, Bullen and Shirley both being part of our Pro-Am category, and we'll see changes not just for the overall lead potentially, also for Pro-Am as well. Andy McEwen, always consistent. He's in P6. And then we've got James Neve, who, after a very poor start for our Race 2 winner, he's back up to P7, ahead of Reece Watt now, doing a great job in Pro-Am. Great job in Am. He's actually leading the category. And again, on his first race meeting here in the BSR TCR series. So as we look at Mark Oliver in the 88 Tech car, currently P3 in Am as well. And yeah, Paul Cook setting yet another fastest lap. The gap down now to just under half a second at the front of the field. So action all the way through as we've got 10 minutes to go. So there will be plenty more twists and turns here as Lee Holmes and Luke Bullen looks like they're side by side. I can see on my timing screen as we head up into Graham Hill Bend, and you can see Martin Shirley getting involved as well. So a three-way fight for 3rd position. This won't help them catch the leader by any chance, but as I say, it's really exciting. Obviously fighting in class. Almost looked like he was having a lunge on the 35 there, Martin Shirley, but he thought better of it. Didn't think he could make the move stick, and they're all now single file, but you can see just how close, as we're looking at the windshield for Lee Holmes. Paul Cook is to Ian Manners for the lead. The gap just under 2 tenths as they head into Paddock Hill Bend. Not quite close enough there. Maybe he'll have a go. Maybe he'll have a lunge up into Druids. Paul Cook, he knows he's got time. He knows he's got pace. And it'll just be about making that right move stick there for him. But no, some fantastic fights all the way through the field now.
And that time, though, is going to get lower because the longer he stays stuck behind Ian Manners, the closer it was maybe loose there from Lee Holmes, but he is really pushing. Tell the likes of Bullen, Holmes, Shirley, they are going to try and catch up if they can, but at the moment Ian Manners is standing firm. He's about to complete the 7th lap. We have just over 9 minutes to go. He does take the lead. I don't think he'll hold on to it for the rest of the race, but if he can keep ahead of Paul Cook, of course, it means that those Am fighters behind him won't be able to attack him straight away, because I have to get past Paul Cook, and Paul Cook, the current championship leader, not someone who's very hard to overtake, although it goes for a very sort of late lunge there, sort of half showing his nose to Ian Manners there, as we see the fastest lap coming in from our previous race winner, James Neve, with a 48.723. So James Neve currently in 7th place, and James Neve and Andy McEwen, I think, are trying to work together to catch up to this pack in front of them. And if there's too much fighting, I don't think it'll be long before the Year 1 boys are getting involved again. But Ian Manners driving really well at the moment in that Hyundai Veloster. In fact, if anything, he's pulling away from Paul Cook on this lap. It'll be interesting to compare the lap times so they cross the start-finish line this time. You see Manners, his last lap is a 49, 2 tenths quicker. So Ian Manners at a 48.869, Paul Cook 49.008. So that little lunge that Paul Cook had slowed him down. Again, he just seems much quicker on the brakes. As we see another fastest lap coming in, and it is from Wayne Douglas. 48.646. And Wayne Douglas, when he has luck on his side, I think right near the front, but just struggling to get that rub of the green at the moment. But the gap behind, it's also last lap Luke Pullen was 2/10 quicker than Paul Cook. So it'd be interesting to see how this develops. In terms of the AMs, it is Reece Watt on his first night in the championship, currently 8th overall, who leads that class, and Glenn Humberston and Mark Oliver. And in Pro-Am, it's our overall leader, Ian Manners, with Luke Pullen second and Martin Shelley in third in that class.
Yes, no, it's competitive all the way through the field. And that's one of the great things about BSR. You're looking at drivers like Cook, Pullen, Holmes, Shirley, that all got the capability to win this race. Even, going back to Wayne Douglas, who's potentially the luckiest man in the series so far, be it through his own actions or through other people's. Again, we don't judge here on Year One TV. He's capable of winning the race, and he's down in P9 right now. As Paul Cook, it looks like on my timing screen, it's just got past Ian Manners off screen there, and you can see, yes, he's got it done into Graham Hill Bend in the nick of time as well, because that Year One car of Luke Pullen was a mistake, was it, from Ian Manners? Just very slow actually coming out of Graham Hill Bend, and that just lets Paul Cook just breeze on through there into Surtees. A very clean move. You can see how much the rest of the pack's caught up. You've got the Year One car of Pullen, and then you've got the 88 Tech car of Lee Holmes there as well. Paul Cook will be looking to run away as, I thought Lee Holmes was going to have a look then into Druids against Luke Pullen there. But no, all very line astern once again as we head down to Graham Hill Bend. So it's a fast and furious lap here at Brands Hatch Indy. As Dan's already mentioned, it's like the shortest lap of the season. These guys are going around in just a smidge over 48 seconds. And yeah, very, very frenetic action here in the BSR TCR series.
That's what we're accustomed to with BSR guys racing, unpredictability, and that's what we love. It's why we come in, commentate every Thursday. And one of these drivers, as I say, for over 9 years, the British Sim Racing Touring Cars has been running. That's why they come back season after season. It's a level of competition. It's just fantastic. But this battle for the last place on the podium, racing up between Luke Pullen and Lee Holmes. I've got to think that Lee Holmes, look how close he gets. See the front end of that Elantra grille. They fight too hard though. Andy McEwen and James, well, in fact, James Neve looks like he's lost a bit of time. Yeah, on a couple of laps ago, because they were right together. Now Andy has managed to pull 2.5 seconds on James, so potentially maybe a small mistake, but Andy McEwen will be seen as battling ahead of him and knows he's got 5 minutes to catch potentially, in fact it's just about a 2.5 second gap, so depending how much they slow each other, Mr. Consistency himself will try and get on with this, but at the lead it is Paul Cook who's pulling away 0.6 of a second, and then we've got this battle which is for the Pro-Am lead of course, as well as second overall, between Ian Manners and Luke Pullen, with the car of Lee Holmes maybe looking for a move down the inside. Pullen wasn't quite as defensive as he could have been, but Holmes wasn't going to try and find a way through, thinking that maybe he'll have a better opportunity later on. And I think what happened with Ian Manners was he went a little bit wide out of Graham Hill Bend, and as you say, it cost his momentum there quite massively, and that's sort of the mistake that Paul Cook needed to see to make the move. Pullen goes very wide there into clear it. He's managed to sort of fix it up mid-corner, which is meant he hasn't lost much in the long run, but as we come into the final 4 minutes of this race, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this Pro-Am battle, because we've got, of course, Manners, Pullen, and also Martin Shirley in that lead pack, as we see the 511 of Reece Watt currently leading the AM class, and in fact the car behind him is the second place AM driver of Glenn Humberston, and also Mark Oliver in third place as well. So AMs are currently running 10th, 11th and 12th, and we've seen the reverse grids have been quite low. You get one of those bigger numbers as kicking up the old gravel there, Mark Oliver. If we get a full or we get a 15, it could be that these AMs are right at the front for the final race, which could potentially be in the dark. That could be an interesting prospect.
Yes, very much indeed so. I'm not sure if we'll get a dark race. I know the MX-5s on Tuesday night did run all 4 races in the daylight, so we'll see what the admins decide to do for race 4 here today. Obviously, we're broadcasting at night time. It's summertime in the UK, so it's going dark outside at the moment, so we'll see if it goes dark on track as well. But no, in Manners, he's just dropped back from Paul Cook a touch. It's 1.2 seconds, but he's holding strong against Luke Pullen. for that P2 spot. We've got 5 laps to go here at Brands Hatch Indy.
Also worth noting as well, we've lost 4 cars from this race, so the biggest reverse we could have is actually a 15. The cars that have retired are currently Craig Schill, Alistair Hatcher, and that's a big one, because Alistair Hatcher doing extremely well in the AM category so far this season, but having a bad race this time, he will not be classified. Also, Rob Jackson and Chris Dixon as well, and Chris Dixon, I think that's all 3 races that he has not been able to finish. As Wayne Douglas, we saw at the end of the last race, he was starting to carry some real momentum, and that's carrying on into this 3rd race of the evening. He was actually 2 tenths nearly quicker than James Neve on the previous lap, and got about 2 minutes and just over 2 minutes to go. So there will be plenty of time potentially for Wayne Douglas to make a move if he can carry on catching up at this rate or not. So I think James Neve there possibly a little bit wider than he wanted to there on Graham Hill. Used every last little bit of that AstroTurf, and Wayne Douglas, pressure will be on very shortly for James Neve because he is coming through. As we see a change as well further up, it looks like Luke Pullen has had a moment, because Luke Pullen was in 3rd place fighting with the car of Ian Manners, but has dropped down into 5th place. He's fallen as well. The 3rd in the AMs, of course, because the car ahead of him, directly ahead of him, we're seeing a very close-up view, is Martin Shirley, who's currently the Pro-Am Championship leader, but I think Pullen looking for a move down the inside, but defensively driven there by Shirley means they will stay as they are at the moment, as we have just under a minute and a half to go. We don't know how this Pro-Am podium is going to end.
No, and all its fighting has let Andy McEwen catch these guys as well. He's now just 7 tenths back from Luke Pullen, so on the edge of the top 5 here. But yeah, all change at the edge of the podium. Lee Holmes, Mr. Consistency as it's been tonight in P3. Paul Cook barely looking back right now. But yeah, the gap between Holmes and Manners is 2 seconds. So looks like Ian Manners had a very solid start to the race. Will be holding on for P2. As you can see just how close these cars close up together through Paddock Hill Bend. And the variety of lines as well. The joy of the elevation change means that there's more than one way to skin a cat down into Paddock Hill Bend. As we come up into Druids, it's a tight hairpin, brings you back around on yourself, down the hill, into Graham Hill Bend. Very much one line through there, but you've got a lot of AstroTurf out there, which isn't an off-track on iRacing. So say the cars can run right out up there, down into 30s they go. Is anyone going to be brave enough for a lunch into clearways? Not quite this, that. The exit's so important as well. Obviously, everyone's going to have the tow. Everyone's going to have the draft on Lee Holmes as we head back down to Paddock Hill Bend. 2 laps to go as they cross the line. In fact, it's white flag. I can see Barney waving that white flag away to signify that we are on the final lap of the race, which will be a delight for Paul Cook. As I say, 1.1 seconds his lead over Ian Manners. Ian Manners looking like he's going to win the Pro-Am category, and Reece Watt currently looking like he's going to win AM class. He's got a 5-second lead over Mark Oliver in P11. So that's 1 and 2 on the road in AM, P10 11 on track. Yeah, it looks like Paul Cook here is going to win the race. Ian Manners finishing P2 and winning Pro-Am.
So as I say, Paul Cook is about to take another victory for Simtech. Quite extraordinary how the Simtech drivers are able to do this week in, week out. It's going to be a 2nd win of the night for Paul Cook as he crosses the line. A fantastic drive for Ian Manners to take Pro-Am win and 2nd overall. 3rd place is Lee Holmes, just edging out Martin Shirley, with Luke Pullen in 5th and Andy McEwen takes 6th. James Neve in 7th with Wayne Douglas 8th, so Wayne Douglas wasn't able to make that move. Craig McDonald 9th, and the battle for the AM is not really a battle because it's Reece Watt is going to take the win in the Audi RS3 by just about 5 seconds from Mark Oliver, who takes 2nd in the class, with Glenn Humberston taking a podium in AM as well. 13th place behind the battling AMs was Fiona Siddons. We saw Luke Jones have the problem early on in the race, which dropped him down to 14th, but he will take 4th in AM. And our final car to be classified is Andy Slocum in 15th. As we see Paul Cook making his way back into the pit lane, following another real copybook drive from him, because he's taken another victory. Once he got past Ian Manners, it was a case where I don't think he was going to be stopped. It did take him a long while though to get past Manners, and that's the highest finish for Hyundai Veloster as well in 2nd place. Ian Manners having his first podium of the season as well. And I think now it's probably one of the standout drives really to see Ian Manners take that second place. He defended well in the lead, and even when Paul Cook got past and he had the attention to Luke Pullen, he didn't get flustered, and as a result, it's taken home a very good finish overall, and also the Pro-Am victory.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll feel like a breakthrough for Ian Manners. He'll be very, very happy with that. And a very measured drive from Paul Cook. Obviously started P5, had a good start, picked his way through, was P3, I believe, at the end of lap 1. And then he just took his time and, just to say, moved his way up on through the positions. Didn't take any risks attacking Ian Manners. It had been so easy to have seen the cars behind him in his mirror and thought, I've got to get this move done now. But he waited until he got the opportunity. And I say, Ian Manners just making a small mistake through Graham Hill Bend was all it took for Paul Cook to take the lead into Surtees, and then he just never looked back from there. I say, not sure what happened to Luke Pullen. Maybe some contact, maybe a mistake from him, but he drops out the podium positions late on. Cost him a spot in Pro-Am as well to Martin Shirley, but drops him down to P5, and in fact, Andy McEwen was all over his rear bumper as they crossed the line there at the end of the race.
Yeah, Andy McEwen, we know that he did very well to catch up, actually. He was sort of 3-4 seconds back at one point. It was him and James Neve to start with, and Neve dropped back, and Neve himself had to be a bit careful because he had the attentions of Wayne Douglas behind him, and there was about 6/10 between them as they crossed the line at the finish. So I think if there's a couple more laps, Wayne Douglas really would have put pressure on our race 2 winner. But I think very shortly we'll be going to the spinning wheel for the final time tonight to see what Paul Cook needs to do in the final race. We've seen him win 2 of the first 3 races. Let's see where he will have to go from if he is going to go for a hat-trick of victories here at Brands Hatch on the Indy circuit. As we see Graham Sessford bringing up that spinning wheel. You can have a rest for a few days after this one. It will be in action for 5 days. Oh, it's going to be good for Paul Cook. It is going to be 7, it looks like. It will end up on the 7. So our top 7 reverse, which means James Neve on pole position. So James Neve and Andy McEwen will take the front row for year 1. And in fact, it'll be a year 1, 2, 3 because Luke Pullen will start alongside Martin Shirley on the second row. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic with the 2 year 1 drivers at the front of the grid. And even though Paul Cook started in 7th, I don't think that's a prospect he'll be enjoying, knowing that he's got 3 very fast year 1 drivers at the front of the field.
Indeed. I mean, all of that top 7, in fact, top 8, because Wayne Douglas, continuing his streak of the unluckiest driver in BSRTC, is starting P8. So he's the first driver not to get reversed, which just, sends his night, compounds it from bad to worse. I'm sure he was hoping to get a good start. But James Neve, he drove away from the field in race 2 and has got a win under his belt already. And Andy McEwen, Mr. Consistency himself, did pull away from James in race 3. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out between them. Not sure if there'll be any team orders at all, but 3 year 1 cars at the front of the field. But as I say, top 8 is just absolutely full of quality here. So it could be anyone's race to have in race 4. And obviously, we don't quite know what the conditions are going to be for lighting as well. So looking forward to signing on into the session and see what happens.
I also think that all of those top 7 drivers have podiumed this season already. Of course, James Neve and Andy McEwen taking podiums. Also, Luke Pullen won a race at Donington, Martin Shirley, Lee Holmes. Yeah, every single one of those drivers at the top 7 podium pace. I'm really looking forward to this. And as I say, we'll see the final race of the night very shortly from Brands Hatch after this short break. And we're going to have a quick look at the results before we go to our commercial break for round 7 of the BSR TC Championship. Round 7 of 40. And as I say, we're not even a quarter of the way through the season yet. We will hit that quarter of the season mark at the second race of Silverstone. Paul Cook, that's a familiar face we're seeing at the end of races. It's another victory for the Simtech racing driver. He takes the win. With Ian Manners in second, our Pro-Am winner. Lee Holmes with a podium. I believe that is his first podium of the season. In third, with Martin Shirley in fourth. Luke Pullen is fifth with Andy McEwen and James Neve sixth and seventh. Wayne Douglas, Reece says the most unluckiest man in BSR, is in 8th place. Craig McDonald 9th, and winning Am is Reece Watt in 10th place overall. In 11th place is Mark Oliver with Glenn Humberson 12th. They round out the Am podium. Fiona Siddons 13th, Luke Jones 14th, Andy Slocum in 15th, and he is the final classified driver. Our 4 drivers who retired from that race were Craig Shield, Alistair Hatcher, Rob Jackson, and Chris Dixon. And as I said during the race, Alistair Hatcher retiring, that could have quite big ramifications for the AM Championship. And we will now go for that quick break before we get underway for the final race of the evening. Good evening and welcome back to Year One TV. We are here for the fourth and final race of the night. We have got ourselves a nice little 7-car reversal. As we were saying before the break, each one of those drivers has had a podium. And we're also delighted to say we are now back to a 20-car field for the first time this season, as Saoirse Fitzpatrick is going to join us in the Veloster. Having seen a Veloster take second place in the previous race, it does show they can be competitive in this one. And going into this final race of the evening, it is very cloudy. Track temperature of 18.3 Celsius. What do you think this is going to do in terms of the racing on that track on action there, Reese?
Well, we know with the iRacing time model, it prefers a cold track. There will be more grip for these drivers. We can see already, even in the warm-up session, Martin Shirley's done a 48.4, which is very, very quick. Quicker than what they were achieving early in the race. I think Wayne Douglas has set the fastest lap in race 3, which is 48.8. So you can tell they've got a lot more grip out there. And obviously, with the cars having a bit more grip, the drivers might have a bit more confidence. And if they've got a bit more confidence, then I'm sure we'll be getting some mighty, mighty sends here in race 4. Obviously, there's nothing to lose in race 4. If you have a mistake, it's not like you're going to lose out for starting positions later on. Obviously, the stewards will have a look at any car contacts that happen. But with 20 cars, so the biggest field we've had so far this season for the BSRTC, I'm sure it's going to be some blockbuster action. We've got just over a minute to go before the cars take the action. Obviously, James Neve starting on pole down. What's your predictions for the race?
I'm not sure which way to go, to be honest. I think it's going to be... I think in terms of probability, you've got to say it's going to be one of those Year 1 drivers in the top 3. I'm going to go with Andy McEwen. I think he's due a victory, and to say Mr. Consistency himself, he has been there or thereabouts in all 3 races, really. This evening, he's been consistent and has finished. I think he's pretty much finished in the top 6 or 7 every single race so far. But can't rule out Martin Shirley, and also, of course, we've got the Paul Cook. He will be there or thereabouts as well, having had 2 wins already. Can he get the hat trick? A lot of unanswered questions going into the final race as well, and it's just going to be intriguing. I think it's probably going to be one of the best races that we've had in the early stages of the season, because it's almost sort of the way the reverse has worked out. It's almost like a first race, because the drivers who are at the front now are the ones that we tend to see at the front during the race, and it does look like it is a little bit darker. It's not the lights I can see on the car. It does look like it is getting a bit darker at Brands Hatch. Time is actually 8:45 in Sims, so it could get to the point where, as the race goes on, where it will get a bit darker, as James Neve 48.1. That this track is definitely the quickest it's been all day, as the checker flag flies for the end of the quick free practice session that we have for each of the races in the British Sim Racers Touring Car Championship. Just a last chance for the drivers to get used to the conditions. It is definitely getting darker as we see the grid for our final race, which will be round 8 of the championship. It's James Neve on pole with Andy McEwen alongside him. On the second row is Luke Pullen and Martin Shirley, with Lee Holmes and Ian Manners on row 3. Row 4 sees our championship leader Paul Cook and Wayne Douglas, with the car of McDonald in 9th. That is, as I say, Craig McDonald and Reese Watt, our AM winner from last time out, in 10th place. 11th is Mark Oliver. 12th is Glenn Humberstones. 13th is Fiona Siddons. I believe we will have an interview with Fiona after the race, but we are about to get racing for the last time tonight. For the 8th time this season, the lights go on. Out they go. Now we are underway, and it is a good start from the 3 Year 1 cars at the front of the grid. Although, in fact, Andy McEwen probably got a bit of a better launch on the outside compared to James Neve, but they will stick in formation for now. But Andy McEwen was going to try and go round the outside, up on the run to Howard Hill towards Druids. And is he going to make it stick? He's got the momentum, I think, on the exit of the corner. James Neve fighting hard with Andy McEwen. But Andy's going to try and take the inside, but he's not quite close enough. So it will be as they were for the first 3 positions. James Neve, Andy McEwen and Luke Pullen. 4th place is Lee Holmes and Martin Shirley in 5th. Wayne Douglas has had a good start as well. He's got himself ahead of Paul Cook and into 6th place. This could be the race that we see Wayne Douglas up near the podium. He finished 2nd in the final race in one of the races even at Donington Park last week. So when Wayne Douglas has luck go his way, he is a potential podium sitter. But these 3 Year 1 cars fighting fiercely at the front of the field, and Andy McEwen under a lot of pressure from Luke Pullen.
Yes, they're line astern as they come up into Druids. You've got Wayne Douglas up the inside of Martin Shirley over P5. I think he's made that move stick. So yeah, Wayne Douglas very much on the charge, as he has been all night. Unfortunately, he's had to do it in each and every race, apart from the first race this evening, where he finished P2, but there's an asterisk next to that one. We know, yeah, Wayne Douglas up in P5 currently. He's got Lee Holmes next in his sights, and you've got to think he's probably a threat for the race. As the phrase goes, red sky at night, Wayne Douglas's delight.
James Neve will be hoping he can double up as well, having taken a victory already in race 2. But Wayne Douglas, the man on the mission, the fastest lap, a 49.236. But at the front, James Neve and Andy McEwen working together to try and pull a little bit of gap. It looked like a bit of a contact behind between Douglas and Holmes, but Douglas makes his way through at Druids. So move Wayne Douglas up into 4th place, and then Mike is Pullen. That's a gift for Wayne Douglas. He'll take those all day long. Wayne Douglas in 3rd place now will have the chase of the 2 Year 1 drivers ahead of him, and this is really, for the whole night, this is one of the biggest charges we've seen at the start of a race. Wayne Douglas started in 8th place. He has already made 5 places up in the first 3 laps, and the drivers he passed, they are no slouches. It'll be interesting to see there now what he can do when he catches up to McEwen and Neve. Andy McEwen does get the fastest lap on that lap, a 48.845. But I think Wayne Douglas is the man we need to keep an eye on, Reese, because he really does look like corner by corner he's taking chunks out of those 2 Year 1 cars.
He's definitely looking like the favourite for this race now as we've gone through the first 3 laps. Paul Cook, having not made as much ground up, still in P6. Luke Pullen, we saw him go wide last lap through Graham Hill Bend, and he's let a whole raft of cars on through. He's also let Martin Shirley through as well. So Martin Shirley now winning the Pro-Am category and potentially getting his 2nd win of the night. And you can see there, is it Paul Cook? And is that Lee Holmes in front of us? We've got there in front of Martin Shirley, sorry, I should say. So again, charging on down to Paddock Hill Bend just here. Shirley looking to the outside. There's never much room there, but can he get the over-under? Can he get the inside up into Druids? Lee Holmes goes on the defensive. Martin Shirley's going to have to just brave it around the outside. Oh, does he? I think he gives him the bumper there in the middle of the corner. No bump and run there. Lee Holmes keeps his momentum up, keeps his 4th place, but you can see the gap Wayne Douglas is building over these cars already. He's definitely on the charge. He did a 48.334 last time by, which is the quickest lap of the race. Caught James Neve by a tenth. In fact, he took nearly a quarter of a second out of Andy McEwen. The gap between them now is just 5 tenths. He's going to get a big slipstream off both of those Year 1 cars. Let's say with just over 10 minutes to go, you've got to think he's got plenty of time to get to work. It's only a second off the lead now is Wayne Douglas. Definitely a man on the mission. He's just at 48.2, going faster and faster and faster as this race goes on.
And the tyres starting to warm up now as well. As I say, it's quite a cold circuit. The coldest has been all meetings, so the tyres will be at their optimum. And Wayne Douglas really making the most of it. Behind, Lee Holmes is in 4th, and it looks like he has pulled a bit of a gap between himself and Paul Cook, who's now overtaken Martin Shirley. So in the battle between the 2 Simtech teammates, it is Paul Cook who has taken that position. But what that has done is potentially opened up Martin Shirley to an attack from Luke Pullen and Ian Manners, who are our other Pro-Am drivers. We're looking at the battle as well. Well, what's going on further down? This is Jones having a fight with Mark Oliver. So 2 of our AM drivers fighting it out, and that is actually the battle for 2nd place in AM. Teammate for the Audi driver Reese Watt is actually leading that AM class, but Audis have actually performed pretty well on the whole in the AM class. And I say there is 3 Audis in the AM class, half of the drivers in the Audi, and it has been quite refreshing to see the Audi doing so well in the classes, considering it is very ultra heavy field this season in the BSRTC.
Yes, I'd say hoping that we get a Honda turn-up at some point this season. But James Neve out front in the Hyundai at the moment. He's got Andy McEwen behind him. And something that's just entered my mind is that obviously on Tuesday night in the MX5, Andy Neve had contact with a teammate down in Paddock Hill Bend. and unfortunately that put him out of one of the races. So hopefully he's not letting that. Well, Andy McEwen knows the golden rule of motorsport. He's been doing it long enough. Don't hit your teammates, but he's got Wayne Douglas all over him. I think James Neave will be wanting Andy to act as a bit of a rear gunner, but we know Wayne Douglas, we've said it many times already tonight, he will attack at every opportunity. If there's half a sniff of an overtake being on, Wayne Douglas will go for it. But Paul Cook has just set the fastest lap of the race. He's got 2 wins tonight already. He's just done a 48.005. Could we even see a 47 at some point this race? It's mad to think that's almost 3 tenths quicker than what we had in qualifying. But yes, plenty of action to go. 8 minutes left on.
And the fact Wayne Douglas very close. He's done a 48.034. Looks down the inside of Andy McEwen. Maybe a little bit of a touch there to the rear corner. They both carry on though, and not much time lost. But Wayne Douglas, I'm getting the impression, is starting to get a little bit impatient potentially behind Andy McEwen, because he knows he wants to try and get the win from James Neave. We'll have to go past our current champion Andy McEwen first, and Andy will be doing all he can to try and sort of rear gunner. As we look further down the field as well, we are on board with Shusha Fitzpatrick making her return in 14th place at the moment. It's missed race 2 and 3. Did Shusha, but she's back in for this one, and I'm fighting hard in 14th. As you say, the car in front of her is front runner Alistair Hatcher, and Alistair Hatcher, until the last race where he didn't finish, he was actually leading the AM Championship, but I believe that will go over to Luke Jones. And after the end of this race, we can have a quick look at the championship standings to see how they provisionally look, and see what's happened over the course of the night and our night victors. But as we say, all through the field, great action going on as we see Fitzpatrick brakes a little bit later. I think Fitzpatrick may actually have a bit of an advantage here on Hatcher, but see what happens towards the end of the lap, and that it's a Veloster versus a Lancia battle with the Audi RS3 ahead as well with Luke Jones. So all 3 cars that we have racing in the BSRTC are line astern, although it is for 12th, 13th and 14th. At the front of the field though, it is exactly the same, but it looks like that somewhere along the line, oh, here comes Wayne Douglas down the inside, oh, contact with Andy McEwen. That was forceful, but will it work? Andy maintains the inside. What I was going to say is that they've dropped back massively from James Neave, and this is why, and what this has allowed is Lee Holmes and Paul Cook to get involved, but as they go down towards 30s, Douglas trying to get around the outside. I think he's got enough to just put it in front. Yes, he does. Wayne Douglas up into second place. It's Samoobi is looking for, oh, McEwen with a little tap as well. Andy McEwen giving as good as he gets. And as we say, this is exciting stuff, and what this could allow is the likes of Holmes and Cook and Shirley get stuck in. But Wayne Douglas finally makes a move to take second place.
I must say, we don't judge here on you on TV, but it was a very, very aggressive move from Wayne Douglas. And I think he more than earned the tap back from Andy McEwen there. It was a big aggressive send into Druids. And you can see Andy McEwen, you can see the body language of that car under braking. He's almost sitting out the bumper of Wayne Douglas. This is classic touring car racing here at Brands Hatch. But I think Wayne Douglas showed he's got mighty pace. He's going to break away now from Andy McEwen. The gap's half a second. He's got Lee Holmes all over his rear bumper now, Andy McEwen does. So he's definitely the driver on the defensive. And the gap's just under 3 seconds to James Neave. With 5 minutes to go, you can see the gap visibly. If Wayne Douglas can get there, and it's a big if, you know he's got a lot of speed, you know he's got a lot of aggression, but can James Neave hold him off? I don't think in 5 minutes Wayne Douglas can bridge that gap. But if there's anyone that can, Wayne Douglas can.
Oh, exactly. We've seen his pace when he's clear. I think that's partly the reason that he was as aggressive as he was, because he was stuck behind Andy McEwen for so long, and he just thought he had to make the move. He has made it stick into second place, and he has pulled away. He has a pace of over half a second to Andy McEwen. So Douglas is second, McEwen third, and McEwen now under all sorts of pressure from Lee Holmes, who we saw get a podium in the previous race, looking for a second podium in a row. Also, Paul Cook in 5th place as well, as we see Holmes looking maybe just to shove his nose in there. He's letting Andy McEwen know he's there. And as we go down towards Paddock Hill, no move to be made, but Andy McEwen will surely be feeling the pressure. That when you're last year's champion, you do have sort of that little bit of a target on your back. You are the man that everyone wants to try and beat. You were the best the last season. I think that's something Andy's got to get used to this season. He's not going to have it all his own way. and all these drivers are going to be nipping at his heels. And Wayne Douglas goes through, but at the moment holding firm and keeping behind Lee Holmes and Paul Cook.
Yes, no, some fantastic action here. 3.5 minutes to go here in the TCR. Final race of the evening. It's a blink and you miss it. 15 minutes of just action-packed racing all the way through. It looks like Lee Holmes might have a sniff of pace on Andy McEwen. You're looking back there, you've got Paul Cook there, and you've got Martin Shirley all line astern. In fact, Luke Pullen's staying with them too. You can see the way the car's moving around. You can see Wayne Douglas having reached that gap. Andy McEwen went slightly wide. Oh, he's not quite close enough, Lee Holmes. But I say we might get a move here. Yeah, the gap stands 2.1 seconds. Wayne Douglas taking about 1/4 of a second a lap out of James Neve. But I'd say you can see he's using all of the track there as he's trying to make the chase down through Graham Hill Bend. But yeah, I'm not sure he's got the time. Yeah, this is a great fight. Who's going to take the final step of the podium? You've got Mr. Consistency Lee Holmes. You've got Mr. Consistency Andy McEwen. They're both very adept at just quietly picking up points throughout the night, and we'll see who does it. Someone I am really impressed by, though, as we look back down through the field, is Reece Watt. He's already won one race tonight on his debut. It looks like he's going to do another here in Am. And you've got Martin Shirley, who's going to get his second win of the night in Prime. It looks like as well. So he's got Luke Pullen right behind him, low, just 0.6 of a second back. Gap now, sub 2 seconds for the lead. This is 4 laps to go down.
4 laps to go. We say just over 2 and a bit minutes. And Wayne Douglas is going to have to really go some, I think, if he's going to catch up to James Neve, because not only is he going to have to catch him, he's also got to try and find a way through. And in 2 minutes, I think that's going to be a bit of a tall task, but he's going to try for it, and then we'll see how far he can get it down. I think he'll get the gap down to about 1.5 seconds. As we say, we're looking at the 511, the Audi of Reece Watt, who does lead the AM class in the Audi RS3. As far as Pro-Am goes, it is Martin Shirley from Luke Pullen and Ian Mans, as we see another battle further down with that's the car of Oliver with Jones, and that's fight for second place in AM. So Mark Oliver and Luke Jones. They've also got Alistair Hatcher in there as well, and Alistair Hatcher not had the best of evenings. I say he had the retirement. He came into the Brands Hatch meeting leading the AM Championship, and I think that will go the way now of Luke Jones, who's had a very stellar night in the AM Championship so far tonight. But Hatcher right on his rear bumper, and also just behind them is Shearsher Fitzpatrick. As we look back at the Simtech Racing guys with just about a minute left to go, it's Martin Shirley currently in 6th place. Wayne Douglas is definitely catching, but it is going to be too late, and Andy McEwen is going to feel like one of the most under pressure gentlemen in Kent at the moment, because he has a lot of pressure from Lee Holmes. He's had that for the whole race, but Andy McEwen doing well not to fall foul of that pressure. He's keeping him well in check at the moment, and I think when they cross the line now, it will be the final lap, because we have the 40 seconds, so we are very shortly going to start the final lap of the evening. And I think at the moment it is going to be, unless he makes a mistake, James Neve to take a second victory of the evening, but Wayne Douglas is definitely making him work hard for it.
Yes, he's closed that gap down to 1.2 seconds, so no mistakes allowed from James Neve here. As we look through the order, you can see I think Luke Pullen's actually just made it past Ian Manners there for 7. But somebody I do want to give a shout out to is Chris Dixon. He's DNF from our first 3 races of the evening. As we start the final lap of the race, he will be classified for race 4. So a fantastic improvement for him here. I'm sure he'll be just glad to finish a race there, I say, finishing in P17 ahead of Rob Jackson as well. But as we come on round, James Neve being very, very good. The gap's sub a second. Wayne Douglas definitely bit between his teeth. Didn't quite get the fastest lap of the race. I think that's still gone to Paul Cook. But no, Wayne Douglas hard on the charge. James Neve out, second win of the night. He'll be thrilled to bits for that in the number 7 car. Wayne Douglas, second podium of the night for him. Although again, an asterisk next to that, finishing P2. Andy McEwen holding on to P3. Although Martin Shirley's actually made it to P4. Lee Holmes, I think he's had a drop out there. I'm not sure who's classified where actually as we cross the line. I think it's Shirley who's got 4th. Holmes 5th, Paul Cook in P6, and then you've got Luke Pullen 7th, Ian Manners in P8, Reece Watt winning AM in P9. You've then got Craig McDonald running out of top 10 in P10, Mark Oliver in P11, Luke Jones P12, Alistair Hatch at P13, Saoirse Fitzpatrick finishing P14, Craig Schill 15th, Fiona Siddons finishing in P16. I think we'll have an interview with Fiona coming up as well if technology allows it. Rob Jackson, I think he might have just got Chris Dixon actually at the end of the race there, P17, but Chris Dixon finishing just a tenth behind Rob Jackson, but his first finish of the night, which I'm sure he'll be happy with. 2 DNFs, Glenn Humberstone and Andy Slocum here in race 4, but 20 cars took the green flag, 18 cars took the checkered flag, and James Neve leading the night out, say, second win of the evening for him. He'll be very happy with that. So we'll be heading back to the studio now. So hopefully we'll get Fiona in for an interview. But no, Dan, what do you make of all that?
It's been another fantastic night of racing, and I say it's a year one v Simtech, 2 wins apiece. Paul Cook winning 2 races, and then James Neve taking 2 wins, although Rain Douglas keeping him extremely honest in that final race. Martin Shirley very consistent as per normal, and it'd be interesting to see when the points are sorted out what it means in terms of the overall picture. But I think it's sort of Paul Cook and Martin Shirley will be 2 of the drivers right near the front of the championship, along with James Neve. And when drop scores come into consideration, I think we'll see Andy, if Andy's able to race for the rest of the season. It's also a question mark with Andy's real world commitments, but I think Andy will be looking to try and defend his championship, and he's had a very steady night as well for his first night in the championship this season. He's had at least 2 podiums, Andy, so a very good start for him. And I say Reece Watt, a very dominant start to his championship in the AMS. He's taken at least 2 wins in that Audi RS3 tonight, and a good performance from him with Mark Oliver second and Luke Jones third. So a double podium for JW Motorsport in that race as well in the AMS, which will help them towards teams. But we're going to see now our final podium of the evening. It's James Neve with Wayne Douglas and Andy McEwen at first, second and third. And as you see there, those are our podium drivers and our full results. So you see there, it is James Neve taking a win with Wayne Douglas and Andy McEwen at the podium. Martin Shirley wins Pro-Am yet again. I think it's his 3rd Pro-Am win of the night, to take 4th place, and Lee Holmes in 5th. Paul Cook is 6th for Luke Pullin 7th, Ian Manners 8th, Reece Watt in 9th, and Craig McDonald in 10th place. And the second half of the field, Mark Oliver finishes in 11th place and Luke Jones 12th. Alistair Hatcher, another arm in 13th. And then in 14th, it's a return for Shisha Fitzpatrick, having missed the 2nd and 3rd race. Craig Shield will take 15th. Fiona Siddons is in 16th, as I say. We believe I'll be speaking to Fiona in a short while. Rob Jackson is 17th. Chris Dixon, his first finish of the season and the night, in 18th. And our 2 non-finishers are from the AM class in that one. They are Glenn Humberstone and Andy Slocum. So there we go. That is the results, as I say, from the 4th race of the evening. What are your thoughts, Reece? What have you thought of what we've seen on the track this evening?
You can start to see the championship battle taking shape here. It does look like it's going to be a face-off between Simtech and Year 1 in drivers and in teams. Paul Cook, though, I think it's got to be your pick so far, but don't count the champ out. Andy McEwen, a very, very consistent return to the championship tonight. But yeah, Paul Cook, 2 more wins to his name. Done very well. But yeah, a special shout out as well to James Neve. You've mentioned the improvements he's made as a driver of late, and that's getting rewarded with 2 wins tonight as well. They've not quite managed to pull off what the MX5s did on Tuesday night and have 4 different winners, but to say a great night of action here in the TCR series.
Looks like the points have been updated already, so a big thank you to the team at British Sim Racers for getting that sorted out. So thank you very much, Graham Sessford. He's taking responsibility for that. As we look at the weekly score, it is Paul Cook who is the best finisher of the evening with 371 points. James Neve with 354 and Andy McEwen 338. Lee Holmes has 321. Top Pro-Am was Martin Shirley of 318 and Luke Jones has 268. In terms of what this does for the championship after 2 meetings, we're 1/5 of the way through, and it's Paul Cook who takes a 33-point lead into Silverstone International next week from James Neve. Martin Shirley is third and first in the Pro-Am. He has 663 points. And then there's a big gap back to Lee Holmes, who is in fourth place. He has 545 points. So over 100 points difference between third and fourth. In fifth place, flying under the radar a little bit, Craig McDonald in the second of the Pro-Am entries. I don't think he's had a podium or so. He's been very consistent though, fifth in the championship. And sixth place is our AM leader at the moment, Luke Jones in the Audi for JW Motorsport. Seventh place is Ian Manners. Just say we saw him have a great result in race 3. Wayne Douglas, despite his trials and tribulations of the season, provisionally, shall I say though, 8th place. 9th in the championship, Alistair Hatcher, and 10th is Luke Pullen. As far as the team standings go after 2 nights, it's Year 1 Racing who hold a 327 point lead over Simtech Racing in the Pro Championship. But when it goes to the overall, where you have the teams merged together, it is in fact actually still Year 1 Racing in the lead. But in the pros, it's Year 1 Racing from Simtech, Prismatic, and Douglas. Pro-Am, it's 88 Tech Purple leading the way by 60 points to Simtech Racing Pro-Am. Sampsoid Dungeon in third place. Another interesting stat we haven't really mentioned is which they track is the safest driver standings, which is for average incidents. Now the drivers who have raced in both rounds, it's Martin Shirley topping it, who's just 2 incidents is averaging, with James Neve and Lee Holmes tied for second on 2.13. So some fantastic stats there. And as I say, we do thank Graham Cesswood and the team as well at BSR for being able to give us those so shortly after a race meeting. Always helps us. And I believe we're going to have an interview where we're going to see Rhys Saunders talk with last year's AM champion Fiona Siddons.
Hi Fiona, can you hear me? Do we get a copy? Few technical issues. Obviously, when we get Fiona, we'll let you know. But yes, no, really looking forward to it. I will take the opportunity just now just to say, if you have enjoyed the broadcast so far and you haven't already, then please do hit that like button on YouTube. And also hit subscribe as well for when we go live. Obviously, we've got the BSR MX5 series on a Tuesday night. And we've got the TCRs running every Thursday as well. Myself and Jack on Tuesdays, and myself and Dan here bringing every round of the championship to you on Thursdays as well. So Fiona, can we get a copy? Can you hear us? Yes, I can see actually. I think Fiona's just mentioned in YouTube that she can't hear us actually. So yeah, so a few technical difficulties just here. I'm not sure if we've tried turning it off and on again. But yeah, maybe a Control Alt and Delete might fix this one for us, Dan. But no, what was your highlight of the evening whilst we're waiting on Fiona coming in?
I think one of the highlights is sort of the underdog story in race 3 really for Ian Manners. I think someone who have not really paid much, I won't say paid much attention to, but someone who's not sort of been at the forefront of the action. It was a very sort of mature and sensible drive really. Also, we've seen James Neve take 2 victories as well. That's something which has been a highlight as well, really sort of springboarding his championship sort of challenge, really. Even though we're in the early stages of the season, it's still as good time as ever to pick up those wins and to put yourself into contention. And Paul Cook and Simtech as well, sort of pretty much flawless as ever, and Paul Cook taking another 2 wins, and I believe that means he's now got the most wins of anybody in the BSR TC this season with his 3 wins. So Paul Cook, very sort of, it's been a very good start to the season for the team from Simtech. As I say, they've won 5 of the first 8 races between Joe Winter, Martin Shirley, and double winner Paul Cook. So it will be interesting to see when we go to Silverstone International next week, sort of how the drivers get on, and it's some drivers get on better at different tracks, and then others are not so good at. So you'll see some new names potentially fighting near the front at Silverstone, or it could be just as we see in the first 2 rounds, the same sort of 5 or 6 there. I believe we may be able to talk to Fiona now with Rhys.
Hello, Fiona. Once again, can you hear us? Can we get a copy? Still a few technical gremlins working on through. Not sure if it's our end or Fiona's. I can hear Cessford working furiously in the background to see if he can get Fiona in here. I think we're struggling a little bit low. Hello, Fiona. Can you hear us? No, I say we are struggling a little bit here. I must admit, I made the same mistake myself. I raced in the World GT Championships last season and placed pretty well in one of the races. Jumped in for an interview post race, and for whatever reason, I don't think I'd been on TeamSpeak in a while. And yeah, I had the same moment myself. So don't worry, it happens to all of us at some point. Still not sure if you can hear us or not, Fiona. But yeah, so I think are we I don't know, asking production now, how are we getting on? No, I say, don't think we're going to get Fiona on, unfortunately. So, Dan, any closing comments you'd like to pass before we call it a night here on Year One TV?
As I say, I think we've seen some great racing, and the British Sim Racing Touring cars going forward is going to carry on producing that same entertainment on a Thursday night. As I say, yeah, we've had two different winners, James Neve taking a double and Paul Cook taking a double. And thank you very much for watching on Year One TV. For myself and Reese, we hope you have a good week. I will see you next Thursday.
No, thank you very much. Bye now.